Welcome into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you on this Monday afternoon. I'm here at our Family Leisure Studios in Memphis, Tennessee. Brett, on the other hand, is down in the great state of Texas, the great city of Dallas for SEC Media Days. Got kicked off earlier this morning when Commissioner Greg Sankey addressed the media about 9 a.m. this morning. He's been out there all day. We've heard from three coaches. We're about to hear from the fourth right now. But Brett, how are you this afternoon? How are things in Dallas?
Going well. The eyes of Texas are on the SEC and on the college football world. The Big 12 got it kicked off in kind of this part of the country, way out in Vegas, but they got some teams down here. And now this week with the SEC, and I think the ACC goes this week, and the AAC and the Big Ten, they go next week. So it is officially talking season, and talking about it we will do each and every day. And I mean a list of sponsors that we are so proud of and appreciate, like our friends at First National Bank and Trust, Gould's, Jim's Place in Collierville, your North Mississippi John Deere dealer, Wade Incorporated, the Commissary in Germantown and in Collierville, Sissy's Log Cabin, Memphis Sports and Tourism Council, Ronnie Grisani's, Jimmy McElroy and Associates, Jason's Deli, and the official transportation of SEC Media Days from Landers Ford in Collierville. Just about every single sponsor I just named, they're going to be with us at TPC Southwind come August for the FedEx St. Jude Championship. We appreciate them now. We appreciate them then. We appreciate them all the time.
Absolutely, and you mentioned all those great sponsors, and but we're also going to have a ton of guests this week. So it's a whole lot of sponsors helping us get a whole lot of guests this week at SEC Media Days.
A lot of guests.
We're going to have at least one guest from every single team in the SEC at Media Days this week. So we're definitely going to get you a whole lot of information.
Now.
The big 16 now, 16 strong, as Commissioner Greg Sankey put it earlier this morning. And Brett, even before Commissioner Greg Sankey spoke this morning, it started off with a great reminder to all of us that Nick Saban, he's just like us. His first media days, not as a coach, but as a media member, he forgot his credential and was denied entry into SEC Media Days. He had to go back up to his hotel room and get the credential. Everyone's been having a fun time with that today as Nick Saban kind of learns how different it can be being a media member at these events.
He did, and I talked to this. People are even asking the security guard now to come on Radio Row, and they demur. Look, if you just walk by the building this week, you got a good chance of being interviewed by somebody. But the security guard demurred and just said, I was doing my job. Yeah. Nobody on earth would respect that more than Nick Saban. Just do your job. Well, that's his mantra.
That's right. And I love how everyone's been reacting to it, because I was a little worried there'd be some people. I know Nick Saban wouldn't, but I was worried there were going to be some people that would, get mad at this guy that's just doing his job. But everyone's had a good time with it, and even Nick Saban, guy's doing his job. I mean, it's my fault. I should have had my credentials. So that was a lot of fun. But then we heard from Commissioner Sankey, and He talked a lot about this new conference, the new look of it, stressed that they love the number 16 for now, at least in my book. But it's been a good morning as he started off. Then we heard from Brian Kelly, Shane Beamer. We even heard from Lane Kiffin about an hour ago, and now Clark Lee getting ready to talk to the media. What has been your biggest takeaway today, Brett, from everything you've heard?
I think it was the commissioner, and we will visit with him at some point tomorrow. We're shooting for 5 o'clock Central, but I'm pretty sure we're going to get him at some point, and I'm going to go over this stuff. I know we're going to go back over it with him. I know he wanted to swat away any expansion talk, and he mentioned a couple times the 16, focused on 16. Well, I can remember a time, Bryant, when the SEC was focused on 10 until the focus changed till 12.
Yeah.
And then they were focused on 12 until they were focused on Mizzou and Texas A&M.
That's right.
And then they were focused on 14 until 3 summers ago at the Winfrey in Dallas, or in Birmingham, rather, with the breaking news of Texas and OU with the blockbuster deal of coming in to the SEC. They're always focused on that number until somebody else comes along and you get unfocused. And I'm going to ask him again. I probably won't get any more out of him than the big room did. But he says they're focused for today on 16. What about tomorrow?
Yeah, no, that's the question, because you're absolutely right. I mean, every commissioner can talk about, we love where we're at today. We don't want to expand anymore, yada yada yada. But I mean, what happens if that perfect team gets out there and is available? I know Notre Dame is the big team that everybody talks about. What if a team like that? What if one of these teams that you think can fit your SEC and the ACC ends up finding a way out and leaving? I know right now at SEC Media Days, the first day we get these teams in there, that sounds great. 16, we love 16. That's all good and well for media days. But what happens 6 months from now, in a year from now, when things change? What if the Big Ten goes out and adds 2 more teams or 4 more teams? I mean, I don't think this is a stop and we're done. I think we're really good right now. We love what we have right now. But if that opportunity does come and we need to make moves, we're going to do it.
And we got this last year, Brian. We got we're comfortable, there's no movement, and then everybody practically didn't get home, and
that's right.
And bags unpacked and the washing machine going till we had the demise of the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, right in front of our eyes, Brett, overnight it felt like those moves were made. And so, we always talk about expansion never dies. It's always moving. Things are always happening, whether it's actual moves or like what we're seeing with Florida State and Clemson, where there are no actual moves happening right now, but you feel like there will be moves based on what they're doing right now. And so I would think it'd be crazy if Greg Sankey is not monitoring everything that's happening. Not saying that there's any team particular that he wants to go after, but he's got to continue to monitor this stuff and watch how the landscape of college football continues to change, every year.
North Carolina seems to be very coveted by both the Big Ten and SEC. It feels like Florida State will be the southern outpost for the Big Ten, and that would take them to 19. Well, nobody wants to stay on that number. And then if they eventually get to 20 and beyond, maybe even to 24, the SEC won't be able to sit still. Another thing that Commissioner Sankey spoke of, and we'll have to ask him about, and he was adamant again that the magic answer for him, he feels like for the future of college sports and NIL legislation, is going through Congress. And I've stated a million times, I just want somebody to give me a shining example of something Congress is doing really well that they can point to right now and go, that's the envy of the world right there, what we do well. Maybe the retirement system, maybe their health care, maybe that's the envy of the world. But what are they passing in those halls of Congress that really affects Joe Q. public out there? Another thing I like that Greg Sankey talked about with the event, especially with the events of the weekend, of how sports really can be that tonic, that place we can head to, is Brian, as we talk about, and kind of, I think, our mission statement on this show of stick to sports, because for so many people, it's their outlet, it's their refuge, it's their release, it's their place to go when they've had all the CNN and Fox News and MSNBC and that they can stand. And look, Brian and I both are very aware, who couldn't be, of the events of the weekend. But there's not one thing we could do or say or make a point of that you don't already know out there in the listener land. So we're going to give you football. We're going to give you hits, runs, and errors. We're going to give you basketball and baseball. And I liked what Greg Sankey said about that sports is often the place of whatever political stripe you are. You put on that team's gear and you all come together and you're against the other team's gear. And I liked him saying that. He also spoke about with future scheduling. It just feels almost like it's preordained that we're going to go to 9 games. He didn't mention that, but he talked about future scheduling and the current scheduling model really just good for this year and next year, and that things will change around college sports with scheduling. It already has. The very idea of some games that we used to have and love so much, we don't have anymore. But that is part of it, and we adapt as we move on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you're right. I mean, I love pretty much everything Greg Sankey said this morning. But you're absolutely right about what he said about just people coming together over sports, and especially with college football coming up. I mean, you never go in and ask questions like, who are you voting for in November before you sit down next to someone. You're just happy to be at a game, and most times, 9 times out of 10, you start talking to the people sitting next to you. You are both fans of the same team.
Seat buddies.
And exactly, it becomes a great thing. And so I loved that. I liked what he said about scheduling news as well. I also liked what he said, something that is kind of a story that isn't as talked about now as it kind of was when it first came out, but his thoughts on gambling with college sports and how some players get targeted and people send them DMs and whatever. And so I liked how he acknowledged that this morning as well. I thought everything from start to finish for Greg Sankey was definitely a home run today.
Bryant, I've talked about it in fun times about the seat buddy you make at games.
That's right.
Total stranger.
Sure.
You get there and you have the same gear on and you're pulling like mad with he or she for 3.5, 4 hours. You win the game, your best buddies, you give a big hug. Then you cut him off in traffic and he flips you off.
That's right. Yes. Things can change very quickly.
Buddies.
That's right. Yes. No, it only.
So I sure don't want to go to a game and go, who you voting for? Never been asked by anybody.
No, not at all. But you're absolutely right. You're only seat buddies while you're in the stadium. Once you leave, everything flies out the window.
Everybody goes back to their corners.
That's right. You never even met that person before. So no, it was definitely a good day. From the coaching standpoint, I know we've heard from 3 of the coaches. I believe Clark Lee is either speaking right now or is about to start speaking.
That's correct.
But I know for Lane Kiffin specifically, a tough time for him up there with obviously we mentioned it last week, the passing of his father, and Greg Sankey mentioned it before Lane Kiffin started talking that he and Lane talked about that he would talk very briefly about his father to start off, and then they asked everybody to just kind of keep it to Ole Miss football and what was coming up this year. What was your takeaway from the coaches that we heard from today?
Well, very, very impressed with how Lane handled it. Can't be easy. It's
not at all.
Very raw. It's in the early stages of grief, and I've talked about it. There's no emotion on earth like it. At times, you want to be really busy, and you want to escape to your job and to your duties, and then something very benign can rim-wreck the day, and he's going through that now. But he handled it well. He loves his football team. He loves talking about it. He loves talking about his senior quarterback with all those starts, and for Brian Kelly. He loved talking about his quarterback play from last year and what he's got coming back this year. And Shane Beamer's going to miss his quarterback play from last year and what he's got returning. I think it's tough for South Carolina and Vandy right now in this SEC. In fact, I was on earlier with John Harden on John Harden Happy Hour, and I mentioned I ranked my quarterbacks, and I think right now probably South Carolina and Vanderbilt preseason rank would probably be 15 or 16. Lenore Sellers at South Carolina and Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. But all that can improve. All these rankings and all these predictions, and Brian, I'll reference it some this fall. We think we know so much in the hallways of the Omni Convention Center. But October and November's got a way of changing a lot of things.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, things can change very, very fast. And we were talking about it earlier today. John and I were. I mean, last year at this time, I think a bulk of the people thought that Eli Drinkwitz was on the outs of a job at Missouri, and I remember
hearing, he thought it.
He probably did too. I remember people saying he would be the first coach in the SEC gone. And what does he do? He goes out 11-2 that season, and it has one of the most impressive teams in the conference. And so you absolutely don't know what's going to happen. It's fun to talk. You mentioned talking season, and we can say everything we want, but we really don't know anything until those games start. We see those teams and those players out there competing, because that makes a world of difference than just reading it on paper or hearing coaches talk about their teams.
And these coaches, this is a time of year where everybody's very optimistic and everybody's really looking forward to a fun season. We mentioned our SEC Media Day sponsors, and one of them includes a good friend of mine, Mr. Jimmy McElroy. And if you need any help, and everybody has that tough spot, if you're in financial trouble and need some help, let Jimmy McElroy and his team at McElroy and Associates help you out at 901-363-7283. They understand that bad things can happen to really good people. Jimmy's helped thousands of people overcome financial problems in 30-plus years of experience, and he's licensed in Tennessee and Mississippi, and they make this process really simple for you. It's sometimes not fun, but they help you out. Contact them today to find out how you can get a fresh start, get things rebooted at Jimmy McElroy Associates at 901-363-7283, and you hear Jimmy's advertising on Rebel Yell Hotline. Good loyal Ole Miss fan, but he'll help you out regardless of what team you're pulling for.
Well, let me break down today's show, give you the rundown real quick before we get to top and not top story of the day. Reminder, we heard from LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt today. We will talk about all of those teams throughout the next 3 hours. At 3:30, Kevin Ingram from Vanderbilt Radio Network. He'll join us to talk about the Commodores. Anchor down, as always. I'm excited to talk about this year's Vanderbilt team. 3:45, Langston Moore will join us to talk South Carolina from 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Plenty to talk about with him, obviously, with redshirt freshman Lenora Sellers taking over at quarterback, like Brett mentioned earlier. 4 o'clock, a little bit of the same we get every week. David Cobb from CBS Sports will join us, talk some college football and college basketball, and I suspect a ton of SEC talk with him today, with SEC Media Days obviously going on all week. 4:30, T-Bob Bear will join us from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge to talk LSU and what this season could be for the Tigers. 4:45, we'll get to big number of the day. 5 o'clock, Neil McCready from Rivals and the Rebel Grove will join us to talk Ole Miss, and obviously a lot of hype around this Ole Miss team going into this season. 5:30, we'll talk about what's trending, and when we get to what's trending, we'll break off a little bit from SEC talk a little bit about the All-Star game coming up tomorrow night and the Home Run Derby later tonight down in Dallas, so a lot going on in Dallas. And then at 5:45, we'll wrap up today's show like we always do with Taco Bell Crunch Time. Let me remind you, we're in our Family Leisure Studios where family and fun come together. Summer is here and it's time to party. 24-foot above-ground pools for $19.99. All ladders, filter systems, and robotic cleaners, 20% off. Select in-stock patio furniture up to 50% off. Play gyms up to $1,000 off, and patio umbrellas 20% off. 4-person hot tubs only $29.99. And don't forget about the discounted pricing on all in-stock pool toys and floats while supplies last. So head over to Family Leisure, 2120 Whitten Road, just north of I-40.
We're Sports Time with Bryant Dacus and Brett Norsworthy, and we're with you until 6 o'clock. And we want you to join us on our Sissy's Log Cabin text and talk line at 901-360-8255. All our guests, whether here on Radio Row or on the telephone, always on our Sissy's Log Cabin guest line at 901-360-8255. This hour of our show brought to you every day by Lexus of Memphis at 2600 Ridgeway and online at lexusofmemphis.com. Great offers on all 2024 models and always special leasing options. Drive in luxury and confidence knowing that every new Lexus comes with complimentary first and second maintenance services. Call them at 901-334-9673. But they want you to stop by the one and only Lexus dealership in town at 2600 Ridgeway and put yourself in the driver's seat of the all-new 2024 flagship LS500. You'll be looking and you'll be driving in style. When you purchase a Lexus, you get top-of-the-line engineering and design they make for the luxury driving experience. Online at lexusofmemphis.com. Experience amazing at Lexus of Memphis.
Top story of the day.
Well, my top story of the day has got to be SEC Media Days. They got kicked off early this morning at the Omni Hotel in Dallas. Commissioner Greg Sankey spoke and addressed a lot of different things. He gave some shout-outs to great former SEC players that were currently playing in Dallas, like Dak Prescott, P.J. Washington over with the Mavericks. He also gave a shout-out to Paul Skeens, who will be starting for the NL team tomorrow night in the All-Star game, Wyatt Langford, among others that he shouted out in the Dallas area this week and just playing there professionally. So it was a fun start, but then he went into a lot of different topics when it comes to college football and the state of college the SEC right now. Then we heard from LSU, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Vanderbilt. Those were the 4 teams that talked today. Some interesting things from all 4 of those head coaches, but I've got to say, maybe my biggest takeaway, and I'm excited for 345 when we talk to Langston Moore. I'm really interested in redshirt freshman Lenoris Sellers. It's going to be difficult. A raw young quarterback that got little playing time last year in spurts, but looked good when he was out there. I'm curious what he'll look like out there as the starter, but he does have Rocket Sanders beside him to make it a little bit easier. But overall, a great first day today for SEC Media Days.
That's my top story as well. It's talking season. It's underway. High hopes for all when everyone is undefeated this time. I love this time of year, not just for media days and seeing old and new friends, but I like the hope spring eternal. Brave new world for the SEC. Brave new world for college football. Expansion, playoffs, whatever system we have, it still goes through the SEC. I know who won it all last year. I know it was Michigan. I congratulate them. They were clearly the best team, but it went through the SEC because if Alabama beats Michigan, Nick Saban wins it in the swan song. They beat Auburn in the national championship, but Michigan won it last year, but it still went through the SEC, and it always will no matter what system it'll be. The SEC will be around this year at the end and probably will win another title.
Not top story of the day.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. My not top story, oh man, I'm switching gears. Not football, but football, what they call it over in Europe. It was a big weekend in soccer yesterday as we had the championship for Copa America and also the Euros. The first game, it was a fun game. Spain and England. Spain ended up scoring the game winner in the 86th minute, but that was not the big story because later that night, Copa America was when things took a turn for the worse. I was wrong, Brett, on Friday when we were talking about it. I was looking at something and it said the final game was going to be played in Charlotte where we had the brawl earlier last week, but the game yesterday was in Miami, and it was a strange time. Now the game was fine; it was a good game. Argentina ended up winning 1-0, but the game was delayed because 2 hours before the match, fans rushed into Miami's Hard Rock Stadium, many of them without tickets, causing security to lock the gates and push back the game's start time. The start of the game was delayed, I think twice, 2 or 3 times, and I saw videos later in the night showing fans trying to sneak into the stadium through the ventilation shaft. So it was not a good night.
Be careful with that.
Miami. Be very careful.
It's a good way to get electrocuted, isn't it?
It absolutely is, but a lot of people pointing out that this is not a good sign because this was supposed to be the kind of warm-up in terms of security and venues for the World Cup in 2026.
Yeah, Hard Rock is a host site.
They're hosting like 7 or 8 games, so it's a lot of people worried about what it could look like in a couple years.
Soccer, man, be careful out there in the soccer. My not top story is Coach Nick Saban and his credential being checked. Nobody on earth would respect somebody more for doing their job than he did. I talked to the security guard that did it. He was very shy and bashful about it, did not want to make news. He knew who Coach Saban was, but he said he had been at a meeting at 5:30 this morning, and at that staff meeting, they said nobody gets past right here if they don't have a credential on. So he did his job.
I love it.
Maybe we need that security guard with the Secret Service.
Well, maybe. He's certainly following orders and doing his job. I can't blame him for that. And I mentioned I love how everybody's been talking about it today. Everyone just, talking about it in a fun, great way, giving him credit for doing his job, and even, like you mentioned, Nick Saban joking about it. Even the commissioner, Greg Sankey, even mentioned it in his opening remarks about trying to make sure all the media were on the same page. So it's been a lot of fun today in Dallas for SEC Media Days. But that'll do it for top and not top story of the day. We need to go ahead and get to our first break because when we come back, we're going to talk some Vandy football with Kevin Ingram from the Vanderbilt Radio Network. He'll join us next.
smoke is our sauce.
What is the Central Barbecue slogan? What are we playing?
Well, I just think that we don't emphasize often enough that even though Central Barbecue offers a variety of sauces at all of their many locations, Central Barbecue's barbecue doesn't even really need the sauce.
We should mention that more often. Central Barbecue doesn't take any shortcuts. The barbecue at Central Barbecue is slow-smoked Memphis style for 24 hours to make it so flavorful you really don't need sauce.
That was my point. Well, boy, do they have great sauces.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying I'm going to go sauce-free at Central Barbecue. I'm just saying I could.
Again, exactly my point. Look at my copy. It's the first thing I said. You just hijacked the commercial.
See how it feels?
When you think about insurance and you want great value without sacrificing great service, I want you to think one place: the Eflin Insurance and the entire Eflin Insurance team. Matt and his group of professionals will access 10 leading companies to find the right home and auto program that fits your budget and your absolute needs. The Eflin Insurance team, the number 386-GER, 386-4777.
Hi, this is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. And I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Five Ash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. Five Ash Roofing, a proud sponsor of Tiger Athletics and a member of the Tigers home team. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
You've got questions? O'Reilly Auto Parts has answers. Need a pro you can trust? We've got that too. No matter what you need, our professional parts people have the training and expertise to help you do things right. Deep automotive knowledge. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Wash your house, wash your office building? Impossible! Not call Wilson's Pro Wash. Your house, fence, driveway, warehouse, store, hotel, even cars and trucks can all be squeaky clean and beautiful after pressure washing by Wilson's Pro Wash. Wilson's specializes in cleaning all hard surfaces: concrete, stone, brick, and mortar, even wood and vinyl siding. Then Wilson's can seal their surfaces so they stay looking brand new. Call Wilson's Pro Wash, 901-524-6799, or online at wilsonsprowash.com.
Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 95 FM. This hour is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here are your hosts, Brett Stack, Sportsworthy, and Brian Gates.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you in our Family Leisure Studios, and we got to talk some Vanderbilt Commodores football. And joining Brett at the desk, Kevin Ingram from the Vanderbilt Radio Network. He joins us now. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us. A lot of new for this Vanderbilt team going into Clark Lea's fourth year. What is the biggest storyline for you going into the season? What's the biggest talking point that you've heard around Vanderbilt fans for this season?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just how new and different it is, whether you're talking about coaches or the roster, the facilities. There are a lot of new things going into this 2024 football season, and in turn, a lot of unknown things going into year 4 for head coach Clark Lee. But I think everybody's excited. Of course, the coaching staff with a pretty big turnover, bringing in several new assistant coaches, especially on the offensive side. Coach Lee is now the defensive coordinator, in addition to being the head coach. So those are big changes, but there are some familiar faces that are back, and a couple of them are here at SEC Media Days. You talk about guys who've meant a lot to this program, and C.J. Taylor and Langston Patterson and Gunnar Hansen over on the offensive side. Those are familiar faces, but a lot of unknowns going into 2024.
Kevin, nobody more eyes wide open and understanding of the challenge that coaching at Vanderbilt than Clark Lee. But even more so now, I think what he probably couldn't prepare for, nobody really could, is this NIL. And you see Vanderbilt really being rated when you get that that good player here, that good player there. It feels like somebody swoops in. How's he adjusting to that?
Yeah, I think it's an adjustment for everybody across all of college sports, whether you're talking about football or basketball or baseball or whatever it is. I mean, it's just a different time. I had a chance to talk to Commissioner Greg Sankey a little bit earlier today, and we talked quite a bit about that and, how you make the whole situation and system a little more manageable and sustainable going forward, where it doesn't seem like it's as wide open as it does right now. But as it applies to Vanderbilt specifically, I think it is challenging for Coach Lee in that you have guys that you've developed that are really talented players, and we had one that had a big game against Georgia last year, and now he's playing for Georgia. That case in point there, but it also gives you an opportunity in the other direction to bring in talented players and add them to your program. So it works both ways, and I know Vanderbilt's put a lot into the raising the kind of money that it takes and funding and resources to make sure you get rosters that are competitive. And I know that's been a big emphasis around Vanderbilt just over the last few months. But it's a really challenging time for everybody in college athletics, but especially at Vanderbilt, where the margins are just razor thin to try to put teams on the field or on the court that are competitive and give you a chance to win in the SEC, which is as tough as it's ever been.
One more year of an ongoing construction site at Vanderbilt
Yes.
in Memphis. We know the feeling at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, getting ready to start that. Everybody has to be patient. What's it going to look like when it's completed?
It's going to be beautiful when it's completed. When everything's done, it's going to be awesome. The facility in the north end zone at First Bank Stadium is going to be done this fall. There's kind of two parts to that facility. There's a part that faces the end zone, that faces the football field, that has suites and all the luxury amenities that you need. And then the other part of the building is a basketball facility. It'll have one level for the men's program, another level for the women's program. It has practice floors, locker rooms, and all the facilities you need at the highest level to play in the SEC and compete nationally. So that part's supposed to be done this year. It's going to be done. I mean, it's come a long way just in the last couple of years when you've seen it go from a hole in the ground to an actual building.
So if you're watching a game, that would be
to the left.
To the left. So that'd be at the back door of Memorial.
Right, exactly. Like almost connecting to Memorial Gym. And there will be a walkway it's going to connect the stadium all the way around when it's finished. And then the South End Zone project is probably a year or so away. There's steel work up. I mean, they're doing work in the building there, but it's still a ways off. And there's going to be improvements to Hawkins Field for baseball. I know the long-term plan has a new athletics building or in some shape or form, either working on the existing McGugin Center or building something completely new. It's all going to be really nice, but they've raised a lot of money. I should say we've raised a lot of money. I don't know. I can't really take any credit for it, but Vanderbilt has raised a lot of money to make that happen, and a lot of generous folks have invested in the future of Vanderbilt athletics. But when it's done, it's going to be fantastic. Now, in the here and now, it's a lot of extra walking. It's a little bit of inconvenience for everybody, but I know when we have staff meetings and so forth, Candace Lee always reminds us that, hey, it's short-term pain for long-term gain, and you guys are probably feeling that over
Tiger
in your facilities
fans hear
too.
that.
Yes,
Right. It's got to go through it, but it will eventually get nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Talking to Kevin Ingram from the Vanderbilt Radio Network, and we talked about the transfer portal and a lot of new on this roster. You use 3 quarterbacks to the transfer portal after last season. You bring in Diego Pavia and Nate Johnson, and with new offensive coordinator Tim Beck coming in, it looks like a lot more run-heavy option packages in there for Vanderbilt this year. What do you think of those 2 new quarterbacks coming in the run game that was a weakness last year? What do you expect to see from that group going into next season?
Yeah, it's really hard to know what to expect. Right. I know you'll see Nate Johnson some places. Folks think he'll be the starting quarterback. You'll see Diego other places. Yeah. There are several quarterbacks on the roster here you can take a look at, but I think that's going to be it really is. It's going to be a really interesting competition coming up during this upcoming camp. As far as the quarterbacks go, there are some guys coming back that were here last year as far as running back. Cedric Alexander, he's from Austin, Texas, not too far down the road here. I thought he had a nice freshman season. A.J. Newberry is super fast, and they've also added some new faces there, too, that I think everybody's excited about seeing. But, so much of your offense starts with those positions and the guys who catch those footballs, too.
schedule's brutal starting
man.
opening weekend against Virginia Tech. That's going to be different than opening with Hawaii.
Yes, or opening at Hawaii, as we did a couple of seasons ago.
Yeah.
We were just discussing that earlier today, what that was like to make that long trip to start off the season. Started home against Virginia Tech, and it's early kickoff coming up here in a few weeks. But you're not easing into the season. In some ways, though, that's good because you have everybody's attention as you go through spring ball and summer work, and then you get into fall camp. Everybody knows what's coming and knows what kind of challenge that's going to be.
We've talked a lot about the offense, but you mentioned Clark Lee taking over as defensive coordinator in addition to his duties as head coach. What do you expect to see from Clark Lee as he manages both being a head coach and being a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, that's really challenging. There's no question about it because as the head coach, you're the CEO and you're overseeing everything for the program. So he still has all of that on his plate. But then you add being the defensive coordinator, which is where he's really excelled and shined throughout his career. I mean, he was a fantastic coordinator at Notre Dame during his time there. But he has some experienced pieces coming back. And I talked about C.J. Taylor, who's here. He said one of the things that he liked most about coming back for this senior season was that, hey, it's going to be safety for him, and he's such a talented guy and such a good athlete. You can see him move all over the field. Langston Patterson had a terrific season, a breakout year as a sophomore last year when he led the team in tackles. So you're gonna have quite a few familiar faces, I think. Guys coming back that have been part of this program, so I think that's a good thing for Clark Lee, and they've added some talented transfers there too. So I think for him, though, this is where he really excels and enjoys coaching football, is being very hands-on with the defense and out there among the players and teaching and coaching and all those things in the practice field.
Y'all ready for Bevo and the drum and all that goes with Texas to roll into Nashville?
Yeah, that'll be interesting, won't it? To me, I've followed this league since I was a kid. I mean, you're going back late 70s, early 80s. And we've now seen 3 expansions. 91, 92, and Arkansas and South Carolina joined, and a little over a decade ago when you added Missouri and Texas A&M. But this feels like a pretty seismic shift when you add Texas and Oklahoma. But it feels like this has been so long coming because it was 3 years ago at SEC Media Days when the word started to get out. We were down in Hoover in 2021 that these teams were coming aboard, and it just felt like it was chaos when all that news started to get out.
We're in Dallas.
Yeah, it's here now. We're in Dallas. Yeah, here we are. We're about to get this thing started. And when you see the signage and it has those 2 logos on it, and you think, this is real, man. They're not in the Big 12 anymore. They're in our league. So I think it's going to be cool. And
I can remember OU playing Vandy in the 70s. I don't remember Vandy and Texas ever playing.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look it up. If they've played, it's been a while. They played in basketball and they played in baseball. They played in other sports. But
Vandy scared the
not
daylights out of OU once in the mid-70s. A real close early game. Last thing for our friend Kevin Ingram. Last time I saw you was at Bud Walton Arena in late February at the Arkansas game. Probably the high water mark of the year for Vandy basketball.
It was certainly one of the highlights. That was fun. A road win for our guys that night out in Fayetteville. A little bit has changed for both those programs.
Did y'all make Eric Musselman? Did y'all hurt his feelings?
I don't know. It's going to be. It's going to be fun to see what's ahead, really, for both those programs. John Calipari making a seismic move of his own.
We've heard of that guy.
From Lexington to Fayetteville, and then, of course, on our side, really looking forward to Mark Byington and what he has to offer after a terrific run that he had in his previous stop.
That's Kevin Ingram with the Vanderbilt Sports Network, and we love catching up with you every year. Have a great year and enjoy the season.
Absolutely. You guys, too. It's always a pleasure coming on with you.
Thanks, Kevin, so much. Kevin Ingram with the Vanderbilt Sports Network, and Vanderbilt, they open against Virginia Tech, and the Texas Longhorns, they head to Nashville on Saturday, October 26th. Again, everybody gets one or the other. Nobody gets both. Half the league gets OU, the other half gets Texas. Nobody gets both, and I would imagine when the schedule turns back over in 26, it'll be flip-flop that way. One of our great sponsors this week, it's the Commissary. Either place, the new Collierville Commissary at Houston, Levy, and Poplar, or the original, the mainstay in Germantown, where Walker Taylor got it all started. And in Collierville, it's perfect for a big group for that Memphis-style barbecue and ribs done the slow-cooked Memphis way. If you're craving an easier way to order, you can text Commissary right now to 33733 for dinner time tonight, for whatever you want to do this week, for if you're watching the All-Star Game festivities, that's the perfect way to get it started is with the commissary. Start the barbecue feast with the great appetizers like the cheese plate or the tamales or the barbecue nachos invented, created in the early 80s at the Germantown commissary. Smoked chicken wings, fantastic. All that could be your entree. But that's what you start with, the appetizer, and then you dig in to what made them famous, the ribs and the barbecue shoulder, chopped or pulled on a plate, on a sandwich, all the sides, and you can order it by the 6-pack or an 8-pack or a 12-pack, and those desserts. Save room for dessert with the banana pudding and the best lemon icebox pie I've ever had anywhere. 901-754-5540. Go online at commissarybbq.com in Collierville and Germantown, and those party areas, orders to go, catering, tailgating. Way too early right now, but as we approach football season, we get to mid to late October, we'll start talking about the holiday bird, one of the favorite times of the year for me and for the people at the commissary. Walker Taylor and his staff have done it the right way at the Collierville Commissary at Houston, Levy, and Poplar, or the original in Germantown.
Well, we need to get to a break. We've talked about Vanderbilt. Now we switch our attention to South Carolina. Langston Moore from 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. He'll join us next to talk about this South Carolina team and what Shane Beamer's group can do this year. We'll talk about that and more next on Sports Time.
Start your day with Sports 56 Mornings with Greg Gaston and Eli Savoy. Weekday mornings from 7 to 10, right here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
I'm Gary York. I'm the service director at Lexus of Memphis. Our service department wants to be more than just a place where you get your oil changed. We do glass repair, windshield replacement, recalibration of your camera and sonar systems, even wheel repair, tire replacement, all the things you would expect from a luxury automotive dealer. Please check out our website. You can schedule your appointment, check out our specials, hours of operation, or if you'd like to do it in person, please reach out to one of our associates at 901-271-5199.
We're in the break room at a traditional jewelry store here. Hey, Mark, I know it's our job here to try and sell every piece of jewelry, but don't sell this ring. I'm going to try to use my employee discount to buy it for my wife.
Okay, but you know you can get a better deal at Genesis Diamonds.
Genesis Diamonds? Are you crazy? They're not what the boss here.
All I'm saying is I got a pair of diamond set earrings there for my wife and paid a lot less than what we charge here, even after my employee discount.
Wow.
You never know who you'll see shopping at Genesis Diamonds with no middleman pricing on the best selection of diamond rings, earrings, pendants, bands, and bracelets. It's a no-brainer.
I admire your dedication to our jewelry store and not going to Genesis. I know the boss really appreciates your loyalty.
It's just the right thing to do, man.
And it's nice your wife won't mind getting a smaller diamond.
On second thought, can you cover me while I take a break? Genesis Diamonds, the smart alternative to old-fashioned jewelry shopping. With more selection, lower prices, higher quality, stronger warranties, and zero pressure. At Poplar and Perkins Extended.
Hi, folks. Dr. Rick for Sunrise Buick GMC Truck. It's our 35th anniversary of Sunrise, and we're celebrating with savings that are bigger than ever. Over 600 new cars and trucks to choose from with huge savings. It's a used car buyer's dream. Check it out at sunrisememphis.com. Hundreds of used cars and trucks with a lot specializing in cars and trucks under $20,000. Bad credit? It's okay. You're approved at Sunrise. Remember, we specialize in secondary financing. New cars and trucks aren't free, but at least they're affordable at the 35th anniversary sale going on now at all Sunrise locations. Coming from Pike, Blue Chase, and Collierville.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on the shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding and a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Granger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call CraigGranger.com or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
In financial trouble and need some help? Call Jimmy McElroy at McElroy & Associates at 901-363-7283. At McElroy & Associates, they understand that bad things can happen to good people. Jimmy has helped thousands of people overcome financial problems in 30-plus years of experience and is licensed in Tennessee and Mississippi. They make this process as easy as possible. Contact them today to find out how you can get a fresh start. That's Jimmy McElroy & Associates at 901-363-7283.
I think think a lot about golf, and when I think golf, I think Miramichi. Did you know Miramichi Golf Course offers membership? It's a great way to play more golf for less out of pocket. Their memberships run for $300 a month plus tax, and that includes unlimited rounds and range balls, no extra card fees, priority tee time booking, and discounts in the pro shop. Oh, by the way, there's no initiation fee. Miramichi green fees, they'll allow you to choose the right rate at the right time on the right day for your needs. If morning tee times are more important, you can book up to 14 days ahead of time to reserve your spot. If rate is more important to you, there are discounted evening rates available that you can choose from. You'll find the lowest rates on Tuesday through Thursday afternoons. Sometimes you just need to escape the hustle and bustle of life. Miramichi Golf Course provides just the right place to solve that need. The name Miramichi means place of happy retreat. When you need a quiet, peaceful round of golf, please make your way to Miramichi.
Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here are your hosts, Brett Stats, Norsworthy, and Brian Davis.
Well, we've already talked Vanderbilt football. Now we got to turn our attention to South Carolina, and Langston Moore is with Brett at the table down in Dallas. Langston Moore from 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Langston, thanks so much for joining us today. And I want to start off with kind of one of the bigger stories going into this season, and that's new quarterback, redshirt freshman Lenoris Sellers. He'll take over as the starting quarterback after seeing a little time last year. What should people know about Sellers as he goes in as the starting quarterback, and how do you think he'll fare in his first year as a starter in this conference?
We're really excited about Lenoris. He's a big, thicker guy from right outside of Florence in South Carolina. One of the most intriguing things I'm excited about for everybody else to see is that he kind of plays with goggles on. He plays with glasses on, like he's a baseball kid. So, that's something you really don't see. Usually guys are really vain, but he's a really great kid. But the biggest thing, he's a dynamo. We kept him in state, kept him from going off to Syracuse or some of these other schools. And it's definitely had the opportunity for him to be in the program for a couple of years, but we're going to have to protect him because that's been our Achilles heel for the last couple of years, whether it be by injury, loss of different players. But we got all of these guys back, plus a couple five-star offensive linemen that are in our program. Those things aren't really sexy. You want five-star guys. You usually want them at running back, quarterback. But you need them at offensive line and defensive line, too. And we really got a great one in Dylan Stewart from the DMV area. So some younger guys coming in. But that's where we're going to have to really make our hay this year. Lenoris Sellers is great. We got Rocket Sanders. But until we start protecting the stop and the run, that's going to be our big deal.
If Rocket's healthy, he's big time.
He's big time. I still want to have a conversation with him when he was playing for Arkansas. He rushed for 1,500 yards. We kind of had some stuff going, and I was really peeved as a Gamecock fan that day because he just ran it down our throat as he did to everybody that last year. And so, again, I have to feel very confident with our healthy offensive line. Dow Loggins having the experience and knowing what to run.
He's an Arkansas guy.
So I think it should come together in a very, very fruitful way for us, hopefully sooner than later.
Gamecocks open the season with Old Dominion and then go to Kentucky. How imperative is a 2-0 start?
Oh, imperative, especially that Kentucky game because, like I just said, we got a pretty much a freshman at quarterback. We're going to probably have a true freshman at offensive tackle blocking it and a lot of new players. And Mark Stoop is probably salivating on his way down here, as all defensive coaches like to do, or any coach in the NFL. You don't want the rookie or the young guy to come in here. So I'm sure second week, SEC, first start for Lenoris Sellers starting in the SEC. He's going to throw everything at him. A lot of safety looks, a lot of different things. So, again, we're going to really have to prepare him.
That'll be a good matchup with Vandergriff versus Sellers.
It will, definitely. And I think it's going to be one of those deals. And, again, the best thing that we can do is stop the run and get Rocket Sanders going and let Lenoris kind of just control the game and just use his legs when needed, not as opposed to us
well,
that being our
why
first
we talk
option.
about quarterbacks so much.
Because
we don't talk about the big fellas.
Because I guess at any moment, Spencer Rattler 2 years ago can happen. Not where we blow out Tennessee by 70 points, but a lot of that was Spencer Rattler just being on that day. It's just like Steph Curry. Sometimes, Steph Curry is a shooter, but sometimes when he's on. You can't stop it. He's hitting stuff as soon as he gets into, and that's what you hope for, and that's what we hope for with Lenoris Sellers. But it all starts with comfortability. A lot of that came from Spencer Rattler understanding, I can make some of these throws, having confidence in his arm, regardless of who was the starters. Well, Lenoris, he's going to have to remember some of that, and that was the first lesson for myself. When I came into the SEC or the NFL, everybody's fast. So some of the things that used to get away with when you play Takes Creek High School, it's not going to work when you're playing Tennessee, right?
Langston, let's go to your side of the ball, the defensive side. Last year, the team got better as the season went on. They switched to a 4-2-5 defense. They're now bringing back a lot of starters. What do you expect from this defense this year, and do you think they can continue to make improvements early on this year?
Well, we're going to have to, hang our hat on the defense because, again, you want to get a young offense a bunch of bites at the apple. So we have been leading in turnovers, but how have we been getting those turnovers? So I like the interceptions. I like the tip balls, but me still being kind of an old-school knucklehead football guy, I want to see guys separated from the ball.
Sure.
And that's hits, tackles in the loss, tackles in the backfield. We do have a whole bunch of great bunch of defensive linemen that are been priming to be great. Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Hunley, who was here today. We got a young kid from the DMV that's going to be Dylan Stewart. It's going to be a phenomenal defensive end. Hopefully he can mature sooner than later. Kyle Kennard got some guys transferring in. So the whole point is we got a lot of guys that can really get our defense going. Hopefully we can generate a lot of pressure that way, but we haven't been showing that the last couple of years because we've been putting ourselves in terrible positions, stopping the run, and we haven't been generating a lot of quarterback sacks. So we got to figure out some ways to do that. Hopefully we get the message faster than we did last year where we were staunch on one defensive, but we made the decision to change it mid-year, and we shut some teams out. We shut Clemson out. We got turnovers, but we got to make sure that ceiling last year is now going to be our floor for this year, and guys have to buy in and practice at a high level like we did in the last year at the beginning of this year and forward, moving
Last
forward.
thing with Langston Moore, he does talk radio in Columbia, and he played for the South Carolina Gamecocks. What kind of year? Every year is important, but what kind of year does Shane Beamer need?
I think he needs to get back to that bowl game. I think he needs to get back because, again, it's one of those deals, and you hear it at South Carolina. Everywhere else is like, this is what he's supposed to do. But a lot of folks say, oh, he had too much success too early. He got the 9 wins. He almost had the opportunity to beat Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl. So for him, I think getting back and making that our floor, going and just going to bowl games and being consistent. Because, again, in South Carolina, we're not going to be the Georgias or Alabamas, but we can be kind of like an Iowa where we go 8-8, 8-9, 9, and then have that year where we
go to Norman and scare them?
Maybe Norman and scare them a little bit. But, again, familiarity. We know Shane will do anything to win. We saw that a couple of years ago when he had, who's now a guy, Zeb Nolan, be a backup quarterback coming and win us some games. And that's the thing I appreciate about Shane. There's a lot of coaches that I play for want to win a certain way, but with Shane, he wants to win regardless. So as long as you're helping to that bottom line, that's the thing he's going to do. And I can feel confident about that as we go into the season.
Langston, have a great week and a great season, and keep up the great work.
I appreciate y'all, man.
Thank you so much. Langston Moore talking South Carolina football with us. In South Carolina, as I said, they open with Old Dominion, and then week 2 into the SEC, they go to Lexington, and that will be a matchup of two quarterbacks ready to get into SEC play. And then week 3, LSU comes to town, 11 o'clock game. It will be hot at Williams-Brice that day. And I go to South Carolina with Ole Miss in early October, and Ole Miss has not won there since 2004. Everybody talking Ole Miss. The 4 road trips this year for Ole Miss. Hadn't won at LSU since 08. Hadn't won at Fayetteville since 08. Hadn't won at Florida since 08, and hadn't won at South Carolina since 04. So you got to play them before you can start toting them up and talking about what kind of year you have. Our SEC Media Day sponsors are outstanding, and that includes Gould Salon and Spa, and they've been turning heads since 1932. Mr. Sam Gould, with the dream, provide his clientele with a truly professional and unique fashion experience, and it's been realized with a family operation. Sons, grandsons, granddaughters, valuable associates from a small hair salon to today's juggernaut, upscale ambiance, chic style that once was considered a Hollywood luxury. We have it now with all the locations. I promise you one close to you. From downtown to Collierville, there's a Gould's at some point in between. You're never far from Gould Salon and Spa. Spa services, body treatments, massages, facial and nail care, and Meta Spa services as well. Go to GouldSalonSpa.com and find out more, and that's when you can get that gift card. The perfect gift for any time, for any season, whatever holiday, whatever occasion, or just for thinking of someone. Go to GouldSalonSpa.com and find out about that gift card. Exclusive to our area, and it's the best holiday gift for any season, is that Gould's gift card. The best spa packages, salon products, and those gift cards are the hit at Gould Salon Spa.
Brett, you mentioned with Langston, I'm curious your thoughts on it while we got like a minute here before we need to get to a break. When it comes to Shane Beamer, what do you think the temperature on him is going into the season?
It's not, and it shouldn't be.
I don't think so either.
And we've got to get patient. I know we have none in the SEC, and I look around the country and I see places that get with somebody and stick with somebody. Look at opening day opponent for Vanderbilt that we were just talking about with Kevin, with Virginia Tech. There's no way Frank Beamer makes it past year 3 now with the start he had there. And if he doesn't do that, Virginia Tech's probably not in the ACC. So being patient with him really played out over the long haul. And so many of us in SEC, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, South Carolina, the magic here is always fire the coach and pay off the big money instead of maybe sticking with somebody like, say, South Carolina's week 2 opponent, Kentucky, and Mark Stoops. Now seniority status in the SEC.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. I love that answer. But we've talked Vandy and we've talked South Carolina. We'll talk Ole Miss and LSU a little bit later in the show. Brett, he's down there in Dallas for SEC Media Days. I want to remind you of our great sponsors that help us get down there and get there every year for SEC Media Days. First National Bank and Trust, Gould's, Jim's Place in Collierville, your North Mississippi John Deere dealer, Wade Incorporated, the Commissary in Germantown and Collierville, Sissy's Log Cabin, Memphis Sports and Tourism Council, Ronnie Grazzani's, Jimmy McElroy and Associates, Landers Ford, and Jason's Deli. Thank you so much for being with us this week down in Dallas. But we need to wrap up this first hour and get to a break. And when we come back, David Cobb, he joins us every single Monday from CBS Sports. We'll talk a lot of SEC Media Days with him and some other things from the college football world. He joins us next.
Since 2002, Rick's Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Rick's Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-2771 or rickspowdercoating.com.
Buster's Butcher at 199 South Highland Street in Memphis. We're a full-service butcher shop offering a curated selection of quality meats, cheeses, prepared foods, and more. At Buster's, our skilled butchers are also experienced chefs. They'll be delighted to guide you on selecting, preparing, and cooking our fine selection of products. We're like nothing else you can find in Memphis. Learn more at bustersbutcher.com and come see why every cut counts at Buster's Butcher.
Hi, this is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. And I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. Fiveash Roofing, a proud sponsor of Tiger Athletics and a member of the Tigers home team. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
Maybe you've driven by Sunrise on Jefferson or Sunrise East on Poplar and seen the full parking lot and thought you didn't want to have to wait forever for your breakfast or lunch. Well, here's the thing. At both Sunrise locations, their goal is to get you your order fresh and made just for you in 5 minutes or less. Sometimes they may not meet that goal, but the important thing is at Sunrise, they're trying to, because Sunrise only hires people that actually care about the customers. Whether it's breakfast or lunch, Sunrise on Jefferson and Sunrise on Poplar are doing their very best to give you the very best.
Jason's Deli. When you're dining in or picking up curbside, you can expect wholesome food and no surprises. Just delicious sandwiches, crisp salads, and quick quality meals made with the freshest ingredients and no artificial trans fats, MSG, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial colors and dyes. Around here,
just taking a bite. You're getting a taste of who we are. New items are constantly being created to expand our menu for all tastes and special diets. Vegan and gluten-free options available. Convenience and on-time delivery you can count on. It's just a click away at jasonsdeli.com. So whether you need to feed 5 people or 5,000, the team at Jason's Deli, they have the credentials and the commitment to keep you satisfied. Freshness is nearby. At Jason's Deli with locations at Ridgeway in the Parkplace Center, Poplar in Highland, Germantown Road in Cordova, and Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Jason's Deli is wholesome food and no surprises.
This Sports 56 traffic report is brought to you by Luttrell Belting. They keep you moving.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. Not too bad right now on the major outbound routes. 40 East has picked up over here around Warford, Hollywood, going eastbound I-40 over to White Station, down through South Haven, south of Memphis. That's moving right along, down 55 all the way down into DeSoto County. Hey, Weimer's Jewelry right here in Memphis specializes in bridal ring purchases, and they have since 1984. Shop local, save a lot of money at Weimer's Jewelry, 7525 Highway 64. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
We are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis. Flynn Broadcasting Stations.
Oh, yeah. Joining Brian and Brett now on Sportstime is National College Football writer for CBS Sports, Memphis native and Tennessee grad, who you can find on Twitter X at David W. Cobb. It's David Cobb.
David Cobb joins us now from CBS Sports, talk some college basketball and usually college basketball and college football. I'm sure today we'll just be talking mainly college football because it's SEC Media Days down in Dallas, Texas. David, thanks so much for joining us. Who are you most looking forward to hearing from this week in Dallas?
Probably Kalen DeBoer. He's the new kid on the block, and his old boss is there on the SEC Network desk looking over his shoulder and picking Georgia and Texas to play each other in the SEC championship game. So, yeah, I've been enjoying the coverage from afar. Obviously, shout out to you, Brett, for making it down there. That's a haul over to Dallas, and it's a new frontier for the SEC. So, yeah, I'm curious to see, though, Kalen DeBoer, how he does, especially, again, with Nick Saban right there. It's like, yeah, Nick Saban is still in the picture. He's still part of this thing. And, in fact, he made as many headlines from day one as just about any of the coaches who were actually in the room.
David, if you had to go all-time Mount Rushmore on SEC football coaches, who would be on it?
Well, I think you got to go with Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, and then you would probably go Robert Neyland, and should we go Steve Spurrier? Those are four that come to mind.
What about Kirby?
Not yet. It's too early to put him up there just yet. He's on that track. He's on that trajectory. But we need to see him. I mean, he's still got 20 years to mess it up. I mean, to be honest, I don't think he will. But there's still a lot that can happen there with Kirby's legacy.
For a long time, my big four coaches in the SEC history was Coach Bear Bryant, General Neyland, John Vaught, and Steve Spurrier. But then along came Urban Meyer, and then along came Nick Saban, and now here's Kirby Smart. He already has two. He's still got a lot of time to add to it, but he will eventually, I think, get there. I'm with Coach Saban on the SEC championship game, David. What's your thoughts? Mine are exactly his, Georgia and Texas.
I thought it was laughable up there on the SEC Network set today. They had Greg McElroy basically denying that Georgia is an elite team. He wouldn't come out and say that Georgia's the best team in the league or a tier above the other teams in the league, and then he went and picked Alabama to make the SEC championship game. And I get that to a certain extent. You went to Alabama, they're going to be the team that you ride with. But at the same time, you have to maintain some level of neutrality and objectivity. And if you are even remotely objective, there's no way that you can make the case that Georgia isn't one of the best teams in the country and clearly the best team in the SEC going into this season. So for me, it's Georgia and it's Texas. And I don't really know that I see another team that I'm willing to even put in the same conversation as those two right now. It's Georgia 1A and Texas a distant 1B, and then kind of everybody else after that.
Ever so slightly in Greg McElroy's defense, Kirby Smart's only beat Alabama one time.
Ooh.
Yeah. He's won 2 national titles, though. He's got a Heisman contender at quarterback. He's got both of his coordinators back, and people want to say the schedule's tough, but man, everybody's schedule is tough in the SEC now. So I think Georgia's going to be just fine.
David, when you look at the quarterbacks in this conference, a lot of really good ones, how would you rank maybe the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in this conference?
I think I would have Quinn Ewers number 1. I mean, this is a really good player. I mean, he's starting ahead of Arch Manning, who I think is going to be an incredible quarterback. So then from there, I think it's Carson Beck. Jalen Milroe is kind of the wild card because if Kalen DeBoer is able to maximize what Jalen Milroe could do, he could be the best quarterback in the SEC, best quarterback in the country. But we also saw last year there's also moments still with Jalen Milroe where it's not perfect and it's far from a finished product. So he's a wild card and all that. And then I think the conversation also has to include at this point Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. And then there's a whole other second tier beyond that of guys who could get into that conversation. I think the league is really strong at quarterback this year because Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava and Garrett Nussmeier are 3 guys who we've hardly seen at all who could all end up being All-American caliber players.
And Cotter Wakeman was on a really great trajectory last year before being injured, and what Bobby Petrino did with him is what Bobby Petrino can do. And now Bobby Petrino's trying to do that at Arkansas with Taylon Green, the Boise transfer, who I think can make every throw. They got to protect him. He's got to get somebody he can throw the ball with, and Arkansas's got to get a running game established. That's a lot to protect Taylon Green, but Bobby Petrino, to work with him, he can do it. If you had one or the other, would you take Brady Cook or Jackson Dart?
Oh, I would take Jackson Dart.
I like that. I think big year for Jackson Dart. On the other side, you talk about all the good quarterbacks we have. We also have some young quarterbacks, some new faces in the SEC. We were just talking South Carolina at the end of our 3 o'clock hour. Redshirt freshman Lenora Sellers will take over as the starting quarterback for Shane Beamer. What do you know of this young player, and what do you expect to see from him at South Carolina this year?
Well, yeah, he's big and powerful and a little different than Spencer Rattler, who was a drop-back passer and somebody who looked to air it out. I think Lenora Sellers is going to be a little bit more of a 15 to 20 pass attempts per game type of guy because I think South Carolina is really hoping that Rocket Sanders is the version of himself that he was at Arkansas. And if that's the case, then the South Carolina offense looks a whole lot different with Lenora Sellers at quarterback than it did with Spencer Rattler, because Spencer Rattler was a guy that you design your offense around to throw it around 35 times a game. I don't think that's what a redshirt freshman, former 3-star prospect is in Lenora Sellers. And I think the way they sort of built this team, you saw Shane Beamer up there today talking about how he really doesn't even know at this point what his wide receiver hierarchy looks like. So that doesn't scream to me a program that's leaning heavily into the pass game going into this season. So I think we're going to see a pretty physical brand of football from South Carolina.
David, paint for me a realistic path, optimistic but realistic path for Tennessee into the college football playoff.
Well, I think there's really 3 games on Tennessee's schedule that you look at and say probably going to be losses. You got at Georgia, you got Alabama, and then you have at Oklahoma. Those are the 3 that you look at and you say, okay, Tennessee's probably going to be a dog in those 3. But the other 9, I feel pretty confident that Tennessee is likely going to be favored. And it's actually realistically not all that difficult of a schedule relative to some of the other schedules in the SEC. Obviously, it's an SEC schedule in 2024. It's tough, but so to me it comes down to those 3, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Georgia. And if Tennessee can beat one of those 3 and then take care of business in the other games where it's favored, then you got a 10-2 team that's probably going to make the playoff. I don't think you're going to see a 10-2 SEC team missed the 12-team playoff. So that's the roadmap, and it all kind of starts with Nico Iamaleava being the star at quarterback that they are paying him to be, because it's no secret that he's one of the most highly compensated players in college football, and you need him to deliver on that pay rate. And if he's as good as they're paying him to be, then they'll have a shot at least.
Yeah. We heard from Brian Kelly earlier today. We know how good that offense was last year with a Heisman Trophy winner, but this year, they bring in Garrett Nussmeier, who we saw a lot of in that bowl game. He looked really good against Wisconsin, but the weak link last year was the defense. It's hard to think that it could be worse this year. What do you want to see from LSU's defense early in this season?
Well, just a little bit of competence in the secondary, for one thing. I mean, that's where you got to start with LSU. But I do like the hire. Blake Baker did a really good job at Missouri, and he also did a pretty good job at Miami for a couple of seasons before he was at Missouri, when he was the defensive coordinator there. So pretty good track record for Blake Baker. He's also familiar with LSU because he was there. I believe it was Ed Ogeron's last season. He was on staff. So it's a really good coordinator hire, and I think that gets them started in the right direction at least. And then the next thing for LSU's defense is reestablishing Harold Perkins as that defensive superstar, All-American type of player that we all thought he was going to be last year. He had a really, really good freshman season in 22, and then they moved him around a little bit and tried to put him into a little bit more of a complicated position in the middle of their defense last season. And there was an adjustment there, and so kind of how they deploy him, I think, is going to be a big storyline for LSU this year.
Everybody in the SEC, with the arrival of Texas and OU, have kind of been a little puffy with kind of some of these comments of they better look out. It's every week in the SEC. I think some of that is so overdone, David. Texas and Oklahoma have played big-time football for 100 years.
Yeah, they have. I just think there's a difference in the caliber of road environment. That's the thing that stands out to me. Because think about it. Texas and Oklahoma, they always played each other on a neutral. So Oklahoma never had to go to Austin. And Texas never had to go to Norman. And what does that leave you in terms of the most daunting home field advantage that you're going to play in the Big 12? Stillwater, probably, with Oklahoma State, or maybe Lubbock with Texas Tech. I mean, so I think that's the big difference is every road game, with the exception of Vanderbilt, you're going to have at least, at minimum, 60,000 and probably at least 80,000, and in many cases over 100,000 when you go and play on the road. And so that's what sticks out to me about the transition from the Big 12 to the SEC is that these guys are going to be going into more hostile environments than what they typically have. And all those opposing fan bases are going to be amped to the maximum to give Texas and Oklahoma a pretty serious welcome to the conference.
We talk about the SEC and kind of that weekly rat-a-tat-tat, and then you get a Saturday night in the SEC, and we know how big that is, and that's even going to be the subject of a new SEC network special Saturday nights in the SEC, Saturday Night Football. But one time all year will Oklahoma and Texas play 3 straight weeks of nothing but SEC. It's only one time for each all year. Oklahoma, they get Texas in Red River, neutral, and then they have South Carolina in Norman, and then they go to Oxford and play Ole Miss. In that same stretch in October, Texas gets Oklahoma. They have Georgia in Austin, and then they go to Vanderbilt in Nashville. How rat-a-tat-tat is that?
Well, Texas's schedule isn't. I mean, they got a pretty favorable draw for their first year in the league. However, Oklahoma's, I think, is a little bit more, significantly more difficult because historically speaking, you wouldn't look at Ole Miss and at Missouri as being all that difficult or all that daunting. If you just took the average Ole Miss team of the last 30 years or the average Missouri team of the last 30 years, you'd say, oh, okay, well, no problem for Oklahoma. But this isn't your granddaddy's Missouri or your average Ole Miss team that we're talking about. So I think the caliber of opponent, that they're going to face at Missouri and at Ole Miss does make a difference. But yeah, it's not, obviously for Oklahoma, ending in Death Valley is going to be tough. But aside from that, like the home field environments that they're going to be put in this year are not all that daunting. I mean, Auburn, though, like, think about this. This is one that sticks out. Like, Oklahoma has to go to Auburn. Like, that's one of those games where Oklahoma should beat Auburn. But Auburn, if Jordan Hare is in, they get off to a good start.
There's real voodoo down there, David.
I'm telling you exactly. Like, you just never know at Auburn. Like, and I think that's the difference. Is you always trust Oklahoma to go into Lawrence, Kansas, or Ames, Iowa, and get it done. I know they didn't have a 100% hit rate on those games, but by and large, they could handle an Iowa State or a Kansas on the road. It's just a little bit different, Brett. I mean, it just means more when you're going to play. When you're going to play at Auburn, or you're going to play at Florida, or you're going to play at South Carolina, and these aren't even the great teams in the SEC this year. In fact, they might even be struggling to be middle of the pack. But especially early on, when their fans still have hope, those places can be really, really difficult to go and win.
Yeah. The best student section in the SEC is a Saturday night student section at Jordan Hare Stadium on the Plains at Auburn. They rock the whole time. They don't even know their seats to sit in. They stand the entire time and cheer their guts out.
Yeah, without a doubt. So that's what Oklahoma's kind of walking into a little bit. Texas doesn't have it quite as bad, but I do love the fact. Well, Texas has to play at Arkansas. They got to play at Texas A&M. So I don't think that Texas is. They're going to be at least a touchdown favorite in both of those games. However, those are two fan bases that are going to be so eager and so amped and so hyped to have the Texas Longhorns in their stadium that I think it's going to make a tangible difference just kind of in the way things play out in those games.
Yeah. I know Big Ten Media Days will see that in a couple of weeks, but you wrote late last week or over the weekend, one of the two, about Dylan Gabriel and how he is starting to get a little closer in the betting market with Carson Beck in terms of Heisman odds. When you look at both of these quarterbacks, how do you view them going into the year? How do you view them in the Heisman conversation?
Well, it's interesting, and Carson Beck is regarded as a pretty safe lock to be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
You don't really hear those things about Dylan Gabriel, but it's the systems that make the difference. It's why Dylan Gabriel can be neck and neck with Carson Beck in the Heisman odds. It's because of the system at Oregon. He's got all the talent in the receiver room that you could ever ask for, continuity at offensive coordinator, a great offensive line, and a recent track record of Bo Nix finishing third in the Heisman odds. Now you get a guy with 5 years of experience under his belt walking into that system. It's tailor-made for somebody like Dylan Gabriel to compete for the Heisman. If you put Carson Beck in that system, I think he would almost be the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman because he's probably even more talented than Dylan Gabriel, and he would have all those same advantages. The reality is at Georgia, Carson Beck likely won't have to do as much. He may not have to throw for 3,000 yards. He may not have to put the team on his back like Dylan Gabriel probably will do for Oregon. So it's interesting. It's just a contrast in systems, I think, that kind of has those guys neck and neck, even though any NFL draft scout would tell you that Carson Beck is the better long-term prospect.
David, tomorrow I'm pretty sure we're going to get a chance to have the commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, with us. And I wouldn't dare do it. I joked last week with Bryant. If I dared to ask a basketball question at SEC Media Days, I'm afraid they'd take me down into some type of Media Day dungeon and punish me and torture me for a few days. So you load up a question for Bryant to ask from the safe confines of Flynn Broadcasting. What's a good basketball question that should be asked of the commissioner?
Yeah, what's the timeline like for this NCAA tournament expansion that we've been talking about, and what's the number in a 16-team SEC? Like, what's the target number for the SEC in terms of getting basketball teams into the big dance? Because it used to be
he would say 16, wouldn't he?
That's what I'm afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of, because if you expand it and now you got a 16-team league, I mean, I think he wants to get 11 or 12 into that thing. So, yeah, I think that'd be something I'd like to know. What's that target number going to be for the SEC in basketball once this thing gets expanded?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we were talking Vanderbilt earlier with Kevin Ingram, they've got a lot of new when it comes to the basketball team. Mark Byington comes in as their head coach after having a lot of success at James Madison. What can Vandy do this year in basketball?
We'll see. I mean, he did assemble a competent roster.
Yeah.
So shout out, because that's tough. When it's tough for any school in basketball when you have a transition at this point in college sports, because you're almost guaranteed to lose everything. I mean, that's just the way it is. Look at Kentucky. Look at Arkansas. I mean, it's just the way it goes. If you're lucky, you'll bring back one, maybe two at the best in terms of real contributors from your team the year before. Mark Byington has actually put together a pretty decent team given the circumstances, though. Will it be competitive with Arkansas and with Kentucky and the other first-year programs around the country? I'm not ready to say that, but it's really going to be a test of scheme and style. Like, if Mark Byington can kind of find a schematic niche, then yeah, I think he'll have a chance, because I think he's a really good coach. But it's going to be tough. It's just like it's tough for every sport. Even in baseball right now, Vanderbilt is struggling to reestablish itself in the NIL era. Yeah, I mean, so it's going to be tough, just like it's tough for Clark Lee. I think the coaches who you're going to see have a lot of success at service academies and private schools in either sport now are those that have a really unique and well-defined and
that's a great
special
point.
scheme. And I think that's why you see the service academies run the triple option. And so I'm not saying that Mark Byington's got to come out here and shoot 55 threes a game to win in college basketball at Vanderbilt, but it might not be a bad idea. Like, you got to do something a little unique when you're going to have the talent disadvantage that a Vanderbilt's going to have in basketball, and that probably goes for football as well.
Yeah. Well, David, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again next Monday.
Okay, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
David Cobb with us every Monday, and we appreciate his time today, and I know he's following all these media days, and we are so happy to be at SEC Media Days here in Dallas. Our coverage brought to you by Gould's, Jim's Place in Collierville, the Commissary in Germantown in Collierville, Sissy's Log Cabin, your North Mississippi John Deere dealer, Wade Incorporated, Ronnie Grisani's Memphis Sports and Tourism Council, Jimmy McElroy and Associates, Jason's Deli, and the official transportation of SEC Media Days. That's Landers Ford and First National Bank and Trust. With its roots in eastern Arkansas as a division of First National Bank of Eastern Arkansas, now firmly in West Tennessee. Eastern Arkansas's largest independently owned bank, now in West Tennessee, First National Bank Trust, with offices at 775 Ridge Lake Boulevard and in Collierville. First National Bank Trust focuses on their clients in the Mid-South for every banking need. Personal banking, business banking, online banking, and that great mobile app. Courage and confidence has been displayed by First National Bank and Trust officers throughout its history. In good times and in challenging times, First National Bank and Trust, they've been recognized as one of the most progressive banking institutions in the country. Commercial, residential, recreational, whatever it is, customers depend on First National Bank and Trust because they know real estate. Call 901-498-5763 or contact Brooks Winchester or any member of the First National Bank and Trust team.
Well, we need to get to a break. We've talked two of the teams that spoke today, but next, T-Bob Hebert from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge. He'll join us to talk LSU. It was a good season last year for Brian Kelly. What can they do this year with new quarterback Garrett Nussmeier? We'll talk about that and more next on Sports Time.
Be sure to follow us at Sports56 WHBQ on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube to watch live video of our shows. Stay up to date with station events and have chances to win prizes. Don't miss out on anything that's going on. Follow us at Sports56 WHBQ.
Hi, folks. Rob Burkham of Sunrise Buick GMC Truck. It's our 35th anniversary of Sunrise, and we're celebrating with savings that are bigger than ever. Over 600 new cars and trucks to choose from with huge savings. It's a used car buyer's dream. Check it out at sunrisememphis.com. Hundreds of used cars and trucks with a lot specializing in cars and trucks under 20,000. Bad credit? It's okay. You're approved at Sunrise. Remember, we specialize in secondary financing. New cars and trucks aren't free, but at least they're affordable at the 35th anniversary sale going on now at all Sunrise locations. Coming from Pike Blue Case and Collierville.
If you have damage to your home and have your insurance carrier involved, you need a great contractor. You also need a team that has seen claims of all shapes and sizes, residential or commercial. After our inspection, we'll share our findings and give you our professional opinion. Some people say you get what you pay for. However, our opinion is free. Trust the name you can depend on, like the tens of thousands of families Brian and I have served over the past 20 years here in the Mid-South. Brian Elmer Roofing. We'll measure your roof from outer space and share our team's experience for your property and claim. Repaired roofs, replacement roofs, big roofs, tiny roofs, insurance roofs, flat roofs, TPO roofs, asphalt roofs, tile roofs, slate roofs, metal roofs. If your roof needs some love, call me. 901-867-0600.
Make your next grill your last with a Big Green Egg. Smoke, bake, roast, sear, and grill, all with a lifetime warranty. Save money on fuel, eating out, and replacing expensive grills that cannot match the flavor of the Big Green Egg. Ready to cook in only 10 to 15 minutes with temperatures below 200, above 700, and anywhere in between with ease. Change your at-home cooking experience for life. Go to shop.biggreenegg.com.
Savings. Now that's speaking the Lowe's language. And when you join My Lowe's Rewards for free, the savings just keep coming. Save money with member-only offers, plus earn points when you shop. More points equal more rewards, just for you. Because Lowe's knows you earned it, literally. Learn more about our loyalty program at lowes.com/MyLowe'sRewards and become a member for free today. Program subject to terms and conditions. Points are awarded on eligible purchases. See lowes.com/terms for full details. Subject to change.
There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. That's it. That makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. Super easy to get started. Try betting on something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook's app. Select your team. Place your first bet. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, 90 seconds, and use the code HERD, H-E-R-D. That's code HERD for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.co/baseball.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. It's still some flashing lights out here on 240 westbound, just past Mill Branch. Again, it's had traffic a little bit slow over here. Of course, the heaviest traffic flow right now, this time of the afternoon on this side of town, is going eastbound on 240 passing Mill Branch. But again, the slowdowns over in the westbound lanes. Traffic's cranking up now through the Midtown area on 240 South here at South Parkway. Havenly Showers, your curbless shower specialist. Transform your bathroom with a tub to curbless shower conversions. Log on to havenlyshowers.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian Brett with you in our Family Leisure Studios. Brett down in Dallas live from SEC Media Days, and we've got to talk the LSU Tigers after a 10-3 season last year. Brian Kelly and his team looking to carry on those improvements from last year. And joining us to talk LSU. T-Bob Hebert joins us from 104.5 ESPN in Baton Rouge. T-Bob, thanks so much for joining us. A lot of excitement this offseason about LSU. What has been the biggest storyline down in Baton Rouge leading up to this season?
I think it's a lot of trying to figure out where the expectation should be in a couple of different ways. Like expectation, where should the expectation be in relation to like this year when you look at this roster and you look at this schedule, but also the kind of larger meta conversation of like, where should the expectation be for a coach of Brian Kelly's caliber in year number 3, right? Now, I have noticed being here this week a bit of an interesting disconnect where I feel like a lot of more national voice or just outside viewpoints, you know, we're so close to it or whatever that sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees, but a lot of outside viewpoints seem to feel like maybe like these 10-win seasons haven't been good enough and that like people are starting to get a bit restless. And I don't think there's nothing there, but I also don't believe that it is as I don't believe it's like as tense as people maybe think that it is.
Right.
I think when you look at LSU this year, I got them at 9-3. I think if you go 9-3 and you win a bowl game and you get to 10 wins, I think 10 wins is the magic number. I think it is. I think somebody should do a research paper. Like somebody should get a PhD in their thesis should be about the difference between 9-4 and 10-3 when it comes to college football fans' happiness. Because it's one game, but it's a world of difference. So that's kind of where my head's at. Although I do think this is a team with a ceiling that is relatively high, right? Like they have a friendly schedule. I could see 10-2, and I believe if you go 10-2 in this playoff, or excuse me, if you go 10-2 in the SEC, I believe you make the playoffs.
Who took over my friend T-Bob Hebert's body? What are you talking about 9-4 in Baton Rouge, T-Bob?
No. So that's what I'm saying. 9-4 would be a disaster.
Okay.
So, but if you go 9-3 and then you win the bowl game,
gotcha.
People won't be ecstatic. But it will pass. But it will pass the sniff test.
Who cares about bowl games now?
See, so that's where I think it gets interesting, though, is because I don't think people actually feel that way. Because if LSU could not hang their hat on back-to-back 10-win seasons, if Garrett Nussmeier had not led a game-winning 94-yard touchdown drive over Wisconsin, and you were 9-4 with a loss to Wisconsin, to set the temperature of the offseason would have been completely different. It would be hot. There would be anger. There would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Instead, you get to say, oh, well, we won 10 games. And no, 10 games is good. A double digit.
I'm with you. The bowl games matter to the winner.
Yes.
And the whole offseason dynamic, because back in Memphis Tigers win the Liberty Bowl, go 10-3. Ole Miss win the Peach Bowl, go 11-2. We've been on cloud 99 since then because of it. So last year, winning 10 games and Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman Trophy, it was not disappointing, was it?
So and this is where we get into, it's so funny how much context and nuance is involved in all these conversations, because Jaden Daniels winning the Heisman was so much fun to get to watch firsthand, right? I mean, just think about that Ole Miss game. The game was incredible. And
Brian can attest. I came away blown away.
And he even finds a way to put the ball on Hilton's hands on the last play somehow.
Catch the ball.
So like that was fantastic. But in a ironic sort of way, at the end of the year after he won it, it kind of pissed people off because it just really reinforced what a wasted, magical individual performance it was, because you paired it with the most putrid, a literal, no exaggerating, not being hyperbolic, you paired it with one of the most putrid defenses we've ever seen. So I got real into stop rate last year, which is just simply when an opponent gets the ball, what are the percentage chances that the drive ends in a score, right? Versus ending in a punt, turnover, whatever. LSU at one point, I can't remember where they ended, but they were allowing opponents to score on like 58% of the drives.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they were in like the 120s. They were worse than USC. And so winning the Heisman was awesome, but it did. There is a school of thought out there and a group of people who are upset because like what could have been had you had a better defense? Like, what could have been if you had the defensive staff from this year paired with Jaden Daniels, that offense from last year, and now we got to see, because undoubtedly LSU will take a step back offensively, but I also believe undoubtedly they'll take a step forward defensively, and so it just becomes a kind of measuring contest of how much with each of those steps, and where does that put you in terms of improving over last year?
Where can Nussmeier fit in historically? We know the status of Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
He's bigger than Billy Cannon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's
we
a
know Jay
modern-day
Daniels
superhero.
was last year
Yeah.
and was very appreciated. How does Garrett Nussmeier fit in the Daniels-Burrow ecosystem?
Well, I mean, look, the bottom line is
Himself.
nowadays, now that you have 2 Heismans in 5 years, he would have to win a Heisman, right? Like, that's the only way you're going to get compared to those guys anymore. That said, look, you still had, people remember Jamarcus Russell very fondly because he was great statistically and he won the Maxwell. Like, he won awards, right? He was dominant. But there's multiple paths to doing this. People remember Matt Flynn very fondly because he won a championship, right? He wasn't the most statistically dominant, but he was very solid. He won a championship. So a quarterback can find his way to be immortal through either individual or team success. And to be frank, I think Nuss is going to put up really good individual numbers, but I don't think they're going to be good enough to win a Heisman. So ultimately, if he wants to enter that rarefied air, it has to come with an SEC or a national championship. Though maybe, this is also new. Maybe a playoff appearance and, a playoff win or two goes a long way. Yeah, so, there's a lot of new this year when you think about how we're going to determine legacies going forward.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the defense, and you kind of said it's kind of a wait and see on what they'll look like. But you bring back Harold Perkins Jr., but new defensive coordinator Blake Baker. What do you expect from him in year one taking over the defense?
So I think expectations are very high. I think LSU's defense is interesting in that you basically have question marks at every position group, probably save for inside linebacker. But when it comes to the safeties, the corners, the edge defenders, I really like the room. We just don't know who quite is going to be the starters or who's going to be the best. But I think there's enough talent in the room where you're going to throw guys against the wall, and I'm going to like what's going to stick. The only real Achilles heel glaring weakness remains the interior defensive line. Though it was a bit interesting to hear Brian Kelly. He was kind of stumping for that, even without being asked for. Today I asked him just about, what position group over the offseason has impressed him the most, and he went out of his way to be like, I'm telling you, our D-line's it's going to be better than you think, right? Basically. So, but look, I love the coaching changes. Matt House and that staff were a disaster last year for a few different reasons. Bo Davis is one of the premier D-line coaches in the entire country. Corey Raymond is the godfather of DBU. You bring at LSU, you bring back him. And then Blake Baker is fascinating me because what he did at Missouri was obviously awesome. But there is a data point that we can point to that should make LSU fans very excited about the potential of Harold Perkins. And it has to do with Damone Clark back in 2020. Damone Clark was playing for Bo Pelini in 2020. That was an awful LSU defense. I used to get on air and talk about how Damone Clark might be the worst linebacker that I have ever seen. Well, Blake Baker gets hired. In 2021, Damone Clark had 134 tackles, 16 TFLs, 6 sacks. I think he had 3 or 4 forced fumbles. He might have had a pick or 2 thrown in. He was an All-American. And now he's the starting linebacker for the Cowboys. So it went from maybe the worst middle linebacker player I've ever seen to the literal best I've ever seen. And Blake Baker was at the core of that. And we talked to Coach Baker the other day, and I was buttering him up, as you do with a guest. And I'm like, bro, I've never seen anything like that, what you did with Damone. And he, unbidden, was and he explained his process, and he's like, and now we're doing the same thing, and I'm seeing the same thing with Harold Perkins. So I think Blake Baker's great strength as a coach is he believes in meeting a player where they are instead of making them come to him, communication-wise, and find, okay, how do I best communicate their responsibility within the scheme? And then once they do that, it's on me to manufacture the matchups that put them in advantageous positions. So LSU's defense is going to improve because it couldn't be worse. But the potential for big improvement is there because I do really like this coaching staff.
Last thing for T-Bob Hebert from ESPN in Baton Rouge is this. Loved, and does he care? Brian Kelly by the fans. Is he loved? Is he liked, and does he care?
I mean, I think he's pretty beloved, man. Ever since he's because first off, on-field success has been good, right? And that's all that. Like, that's going to be the baseline for anything, right? Even if people love your personality, if you lose games, people aren't going to like you. But he's been super personal since he showed up to Baton Rouge, man. I don't know if it's, age, wisdom, maybe just a shrewd reading of the situation. Maybe it's having a 10-year, $100 million contract that is not going to be broken. That'd probably make me in a pretty good mood, I'd say. But
for sure.
But for whatever reason, he's been so gracious to media, to fans. He's funny. Like, yeah, I feel like Kelly's actually. I guess I'll say this. I used to make all the Kelly jokes as well when he was at Notre Dame. And outside looking in, the man that I've interacted with is not at all the man that I thought I would be interacting with when he originally got the job.
I did the same thing with Lane. Stereotypes are really dumb, aren't they?
Yeah. It turns out you meet someone, and Lane's especially a bit like an onion, where he has his fun Twitter personality, but generally when you get him a formal interview setting, he's kind of boring. But then if you're just talking to him, then he's really funny. So it's yeah, people, imagine this. Humans can be multifaceted.
Sure can. T-Bob Abear, you're multifaceted. You get it honestly from your dad, Bobby Abear. Thank you so much, T-Bob.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for having me, man.
Have a great week. T-Bob Abear with us talking LSU football. And this summer, let's drive to the beach, to the lake, to the mountains, anywhere in what we really want to drive. And that's something from our friends at All-Star Chevrolet down in Olive Branch. First exit, cross into Mississippi on Highway 78. You're there at Kraft Goodman Road. Hundreds of new and pre-owned Silverados, all at All-Star. Some mark 12% off. Invoice, add up the All-Star special discounts, and look for your Costco member deals as well. It's one sweet buyer's market right now with financing as low as 1.9. No payments for 90 days on a bunch of new All-Star Chevys, and nothing beats road trips in that new Tahoe. Get an extra $500 bonus back instantly if you're a healthcare worker, an educator, a college grad, military, first responder. No matter what pre-owned you're looking for, they have it at All-Star. 4Runners, Expedition, Jeeps. Bring any vehicle you want to sell and get a big check today. Let's head to All-Star. Don't miss All-Star Chevy Summer special sale going on right now in Olive Branch. AllStarAutoGroup.com.
Well, we need to get to a break here in a second, but before we do that, I've already told you about a lot of our great sponsors this week at SEC Media Days, and I've got to remind you about one of them. It's the first name in Memphis Italian food, Ronnie Grizzani's in Regalia. Get over there for lunch, the Italian favorites with a crisp, cold Miss Mary salad, lobster tower, fried green tomatoes, the crab stack, and Monday through Saturday for lunch. Get over there. Ronnie Grizzani's also offers catering. Check out the lunch catering guide over at RonnieGrizzani's.com and get some of the favorites like the Elfos Special, one of their great salads, Italian bread, only $14 per person. Ronnie Grizzani's, and they'll bring it to you. 901-850-0191. That's 901-850-0191. Pick up a pan of lasagna over at Ronnie Grizzani's at Regalia, or check out the bulk menu at RonnieGrizzani's.com. Get your favorites at home like chicken Alfredo, ravioli, Italian spinach, and they've got curbside pickup or delivery to your door free within 4 miles of Regalia. And with the hot weather, don't forget about their bar. Stay cool with a cocktail list, the steaks, the 8-ounce gorgonzola, and bacon wrapped filet. Try it now and thank me later. You can also find Ronnie Grizzani's in High Point Grocery, Super Low on Spotswood and Goodman Road, and Buster's Liquor. Make lunch or dinner easy at Ronnie Grizzani's, a Memphis tradition since 1909. Let's get to that break, and when we come back, it'll be time for Big Number of the Day.
We are real sports talk. Sports 56 WHBQ. Available on your radio dial at 560 AM and 98.5 FM, as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Wherever you are, stay tuned in to real sports talk. Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
You or someone you know or care about has dealt with a difficult divorce. When facing divorce, you need the attorneys at Rice Law. Nick and Larry Rice lead the firm with 3 generations and 7 decades of experience. Located in Memphis, serving the entire state of Tennessee and North Mississippi. Rice Law is who you need to call. Simple or difficult divorce, they know how to handle it. Call Rice Law at 901-526-6701, or for more information, visit them at aboutdivorce.com. That's aboutdivorce.com.
If you want a great experience, you need to go to Genesis.
Meet Kendall Wammel, who shopped several other jewelry stores but ended up at Genesis Diamonds with a bigger, better quality diamond for less.
Based on what I had seen elsewhere, I didn't know that this size diamond would be possible for me to have on my finger.
Are you ring shopping? Genesis Diamonds has one of the nation's largest selections of GIA certified diamonds at the guaranteed best prices, bar none.
You're going to get the most value for your dollar at Genesis Diamonds. You're going to get the best customer service in town and probably in the entire state.
And that's what Kendall really loved. The personal attention, the relaxed environment, the no-pressure shopping experience.
This jewelry store was like home. It wasn't walking into corporate America. Nothing's a sales pitch here. It's all genuine. They're like a family.
Genesis Diamonds.
There would be no reason that I could ever think of that you would not go to Genesis first. And if you leave Genesis and try to shop around, you will come back to Genesis.
Memphis's direct diamond importer at Poplar and Perkins Extended.
All right, when it comes to getting life insurance for your family, a lot of excuses can get in the way. But ask yourself this: if something were to happen to me, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' education, and the other bills? Then forget the excuses and check out Ethos Life, the online, easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes. Ethos has rates that you can afford, like a $500,000 policy for a 40-year-old male starting at $1 a day or $30 a month, with a few health questions and no medical exam. Get your free quote right now at checkethos.com. That's checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Rates do vary.
Guns, guns, and more guns. Over 700 firearms in stock. Home defense guns, old guns, new guns, used guns, big guns, little guns. Every gun you can think of, Classic Arms has them. All brands like Glock, SIG, Colt, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Browning, Beretta, Benelli, Remington, Winchester, and more. Guaranteed lowest prices in town. Only gun importer in the Mid-South. Free gun inspections and appraisals and free bore sighting for the upcoming deer season. Shop online at ClassicArmsOfMemphis.com or visit Classic Arms at 1740 Germantown Parkway behind Quirky's Barbecue in Cordova.
I'm with John Burgos from the world-famous Rendezvous in the Alley since 1948.
Brett, we have catered parties all over this country and all over the world, from Singapore, Australia, to Central Park in New York. But many people don't realize how much we do locally. For holiday events, office parties, tailgating, birthday parties, you can't do better than the Rendezvous. For example, you can get a cheese and sausage tray for 15 to 300 people for $3.75 per person. You can even build your own nacho bar for $10.50 per person. All you need is a minimum of 15 people. In many cases, we can arrange delivery and full-service catering. We've even made it easy to get to-go items. You can just park at our front door in the alley, put on your flashes, and we'll get you going ASAP. For all your catering items and prices, go to hogsfly.com, click on menu, and drop down to catering.
Thank you, John. The Rendezvous, Mr. Charlie Burgos' Rendezvous in the Alley since 1948 and celebrating its 75th year.
Do you know one of the best things you can do for your employees or family's health? Provide Arctic Clear bottled water. Arctic Clear bottled water is your locally owned and operated bottled water provider. Arctic Clear is 100% natural spring water with free delivery and setup, dependable service, and no long-term contracts. What an easy choice. Call Jeff Manus today, 901-382-2363, or visit arctic-clear.com. Arctic Clear bottled water. Call now, 382-2363. That's 382-2363.
Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again are Brett Norsworthy and Brian Davis.
Big Daddy.
Hello, Big Brand. It's a guy, he wants to be big, then he gets big, he doesn't want to be big anymore, then he gets small, but the suit's too big.
Big Daddy.
The big boy.
You're a big guy. I think she's trying to pull a fast one on Big Daddy.
The big number of the day.
All right, Brett, I've got 2 big numbers today, and both of them come from Major League Baseball. To get a wave just for a second, from SEC Media Days. No promises, though, that the rest of the week it might not be about SEC Media Days. But I'll start with my first big number, and it is the number 6. In 6 days as a big leaguer, Reese Hines, we talked about a little bit last year, of the Reds, has had a terrific start to his major league career. 9 total extra base hits, 5 total home runs, a game with all 3 types of extra base hit, a grand slam, and a multi-home run game. Nobody else in MLB history has done all of that over any 6-day span at any point in their career. So we'll see if Reese Hines can continue this hot start. So that's one end, a great end of a player that's playing really good ball right now. On the other side, we do got to bring up something a little depressing, especially for people like my brother, because this has to do with the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox, this big number is the number 13. The White Sox have been swept in a series for the 13th time this season. That's
a lot of brooms.
That's a lot of brooms, Brett. You have a whole closet full of brooms when it comes to 13 sweeps in a season. That ties the 2018 Orioles for the most time swept by a team prior to the All-Star break, with a minimum of 2 games in each series. So a really good big number and a really bad big number.
It is, and the player you mentioned with all the hits in the last 6 weeks, that's the human bingo card for baseball.
Oh yeah, it's incredible, and
we're going to do more baseball at 5:30. We're going to
sure
compare National League and American League starters for tomorrow night to the last time the Metroplex hosted the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. That was 1995. 1995 holds up real well. The National League starters in 95, this is a bold statement. It may have been the greatest National League starting lineup ever.
Holy cow.
Stay tuned at 5:30. I have 2 big numbers as well. I was torn between 5 and I was torn between 34. Well, this today was Lane Kiffin's 5th SEC Media Days as head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. His 6th total. He was here the 1 year at Tennessee. Nobody had him coming here in year 5 when he was hired at Ole Miss. But that leads into my big number, and that's why there's so much contentment and everybody pleased in the Ole Miss world, because 34, that's the number of wins in the 4 years at Ole Miss. Outback and Peach Bowl wins thrown in there. 3-1 in the battle for the Golden Egg. 2-2 against LSU, 34-15. And today his 6th all-time appearance, but 5th as the head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. We'll talk Ole Miss football to start the 5 o'clock hour with Neil McCready from the rival site rebelgrove.com and covering all things Ole Miss. And Neil holds no punches back. And I've told him, I've said to his face, I'll say it again when he's on with us, he's fearless. It's easy to be fearless if you're covering a big league team in New York City.
Sure.
It's easy to be fearless in a big market. But in a little bitty town that you got to call it like you see it, that's not always easy.
Yeah, it's a little different in that sense. So I'm really excited to talk to Neil to start the 5 o'clock hour.
But good day for Lane Kiffin.
Yep.
I know very heavy heart, and the actual services for the late Monty Kiffin will be next Saturday in the Tampa area where Monty Kiffin was beloved. Lane Kiffin wants to win every game, every time out. But that Outback Bowl, that first year, COVID year, limited crowd at Raymond James Stadium with the pirate ship, and he wanted that game because so many of his mom and dad's friends and his brother Chris who, with the Buccaneers and friends of theirs in the Tampa St. Pete area, that was big to him. It was big to him to look up and see his dad in that Buccaneer ring of honor. It's a little bit like pitching coaches in baseball. And my Cardinal stripes are showing when I say this. I really believe Dave Duncan could be one of the few pitching coaches ever in Cooperstown. He probably won't be.
Sure.
Monty Kiffin as the D coordinator, he probably someday could be in Canton.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, what he did as a defensive coordinator and really changing some of the aspects of the game and what teams do defensively. Obviously, Tampa 2. which he coined down in Tampa. And so, yeah, I think
and Tony Dungy instrumental in
sure,
that too.
Absolutely. But, when you talk about, can't miss coordinators, he's definitely in that category, and I do think deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame.
I think Jerry Jones just loved him in his Cowboy stint. I know he did because he loved him when he was at Arkansas with Lou Holtz. And I told this story last week, but Monty Kiffin would always say working for Coach Holtz was great because you can run anything you want, you can blitz anytime you want. I don't care if it's man, if it's zone, cover two, whatever it is, just get me the ball back. That's all I'm worried about.
I love that.
And they had a lot of respect for each other. And in 1979 in Little Rock, Arkansas upset and beat Texas, and how the players loved him. There was a defensive back for Arkansas from Sherman, Texas, not far from here in Dallas, named Randy Wessinger. And that post-game scene of Randy Wessinger and Coach Monty Kiffin just rolling around in a human ball on the field at War Memorial, celebrating that wild win and 17-14 for the Razorbacks that day. And I was at the game with my good friend Bryce Fletcher that day, one of my favorite games to ever go to win that game. Al Michaels would do the ABC I'll call it the backup game. Keith Jackson was the king of with Cosell, he was the king of the network. And he kind of did the A game, and I don't know where he was that day, but Al Michaels, do you believe in miracles? Uh-huh. He was the ABC play-by-play announcer that day in Little Rock in 79 at War Memorial.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And Al Michaels was the network. He was on the ABC call of the Buck Bellew to Lindsey Scott play. It's famous for Larry Munson losing his mind. You go to YouTube, Al Michaels' call of that. Now, it's not with the Georgia passion of Larry Munson, but for a straight network call that, he's not supposed to show Georgia passion, it's just as good.
Wow. Interesting. I didn't know that, so learn a little bit.
But he didn't break a chair, and he didn't say they're burning everything down in Savannah tonight.
Well, it makes a little bit of difference, I guess.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, we need to go ahead and get to a break and wrap up this hour. Let me remind you again of our great sponsors with us this week at SEC Media Days. First National Bank and Trust, Gould's, Jim's Place in Collierville, your North Mississippi John Deere dealer, Wade Incorporated, the Commissary in Germantown and Collierville, Sissy's Log Cabin, Memphis Sports and Tourism Council, Ronnie Grisani's, Jimmy McElroy and Associates, Landers Ford, and Jason's Deli. And they'll be with us all week this week down in Dallas at SEC Media Days. We've talked about 3 of the teams, 1 more to go, and Neil McCready, he's from Rivals, RebelGrove.com. He'll join us next to talk the Ole Miss Rebels. That's coming up next on Sportstime.
Locally owned and operated for over 40 years, Automatic Gates Construction tailors custom gate solutions for all your residential, commercial, and industrial needs, including repairs, maintenance, and installation. Automatic Gates Construction specializes in designing and installing automatic gates and fencing that seamlessly blends security, functionality, and aesthetic appeal. Elevate the safety and efficiency of your property with a premium gate solution. Automatic Gates Construction at myautomaticgates.com.
Welcome to Triumph Auto Sales, where you'll have a great car buying experience. Triumph Auto Sales is your #1 source of quality pre-owned vehicles ranging from lease returns to new car trades, all at huge savings. Plus, Triumph has a full array of financing options to meet your needs. Find your next car online at TriumphAutoSales.com or stop in today at 4875 Elmore Road. Triumph Auto Sales will help you get the vehicle you want at the price you need and the service you deserve. For a great car and a great experience from a local and family-owned business, visit Triumph Auto Sales.
Is your wife asking you to stop eating junk food? Well, we have you covered at Humdinger's. It's quick and it's healthy, and most important, it tastes amazing. With many choices from salmon salad to rainbow trout and grilled asparagus. Come visit us for lunch at Humdinger's, 6300 Poplar Avenue. So good, Coach Penny eats with us weekly. Don't forget, Humdinger's offers full-service catering for weddings, social events, or your corporate lunches. You can call 901-260-8292 to find out more.
There are
many real estate companies out there, but then there's Banyan Tree Realtors on the Cottonville Town Square. There are hands-on, family-owned boutique real estate companies whose agents have been offering exceptional attention to their clients for over 40 years. In an ever-changing world, Banyan Tree continues to maintain a small-town personal charm while providing a worldwide connection through its internet marketing presence. Personal service will never go out of style at Banyan Tree Realtors. Their agents are people you can trust, offering service you deserve. From residential homes to commercial properties, farmland, land lots, and historical houses, Banyan Tree has the expertise you can rely on. So if you're downsizing, upsizing, moving in, or moving on, give Banyan Tree Realtors a call today. Craig Smith and Mary Jean Smith and their agents are ready to serve you. Call today at 901-620-8920 or 901-359-2520.
In financial trouble and need some help? Call Jimmy McElroy at McElroy & Associates at 901-363-7283. At McElroy & Associates, they understand that bad things can happen to good people. Jimmy has helped thousands of people overcome financial problems in 30-plus years of experience and is licensed in Tennessee and Mississippi. They make this process as easy as possible. Contact them today to find out how you can get a fresh start. That's Jimmy McElroy & Associates at 901-363-7283.
Listen each and every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and join Ottawa Presbyterian Church for worship. Ottawa is a PCUSA church located in town Memphis.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. Still some flashing lights out here on 240 westbound, just past Mill Branch. Still got traffic limping along down through here. Now it's starting to build that time of the afternoon going eastbound. That's a given this time of the afternoon on 240 east from Mill Branch all the way out to 385. Still moving right now on 240 east over here up by Poplar. Havenly Showers, your curbless shower specialist. Transform your bathroom with a tub to curbless shower conversion. For more information, log on to havenlyshowers.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you in our Family Leisure Studios. Brett's live down in Dallas for SEC Media Days, and joining him at the table, Neil McCready from Rivals and RebelGrove.com, joining us to talk the Ole Miss Rebels. Neil, thanks so much for joining us. I'm curious. We saw that season last year, 11-2 under Lane Kiffin. You go to the Peach Bowl, you get the win, then you get a lot of these guys that were super impactful players last year announce that they're going to run it back one more season at Ole Miss. What has this offseason been like from your readers, from the fans at Ole Miss that you interact with on a daily basis? What has that excitement been like for this season?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think so. This will be my 17th season on the beat, which is an insane number. I hear myself say that and think there's just no way. It's the most excited that I think a fan base has been. There may have been 1 or 2 years that sort of rival this, maybe 2015, maybe to some degree 2009, although I think in 2009, anybody who was sort of realistic about it knew that was sort of manufactured excitement. 15, there was reason to be excited. This is the most realistic, I think, the excitement has been since I've been here. I'm not an Ole Miss historian. I can't tell you about the 60s or the 70s or any of that. But yeah, I mean, look, they won 11 games. There were a few that were razor thin that I think some fans sort of forget that those games could have gone the other way. The Alabama game, they didn't play particularly well. The Georgia game, they got humbled. But to their credit, they didn't bury their head in the sand that day. They said, okay, if we're going to avoid losses like this when we play the upper echelon of the SEC, we've got to address something, and they went about the process of addressing it, I think, pretty thoroughly. And they're much better on paper, at least, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They have a veteran quarterback back for his third season with the same head coach, the same offensive coordinator, the same system. They've got a lot of weapons around him. I think they're better up front on the offensive line. Pete Golding's back for year 2, so there's some continuity on the defensive side. The schedule's favorable, and people should be excited, I think. Now, that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win 10 or 11 games and make the playoffs and compete for a national title, because it doesn't work like that. But in terms of if you could draw up a schedule, I mean, yeah, you'd probably love to trade Georgia for Vanderbilt, but other than that, I mean, they kind of caught every possible break you could get. Yeah, they don't play Texas A&M, they don't play Texas, they don't play Missouri, they don't play Alabama, they don't play Auburn. I mean, those are a lot of potential obstacles that just get completely avoided. So, I mean, it's a really long answer to your question, but people are excited, and they should be.
Neil, when Jackson Dart, it's not almost unbelievable now, but we can remember not only a pitch battle for the starting job, but him starting the opener in 22, and then Luke Altmaier starting the second game in 2022. Can you believe the player he is now from the will it be Altmaier or will it be Dart scenario?
Yeah, because here's why, Brett, because he's a really solid person. He's got a lot of character to him. Forget the football. I think he comes from a really good family. I think he comes from a disciplined family. I don't mean over the top. I just mean where there's expectations and you're held to a standard, and there's a confidence that he's always had, and a willingness, if not a love, to compete. And that doesn't mean just on Saturday. That means compete all year, compete all the time, compete in everything. And look, he was better than Luke. I think everyone could see that. There was some politics to that. I don't mean that in a bad way. Just you're trying to keep guys around, that they didn't have a lot of depth.
In-state youngster.
And then, I think Lane got frustrated at Jackson at the end of 2022, and I think for a little while questioned whether he thought Jackson was the guy. And, they went out and added another quarterback and brought in this weird deal last year, and it created sort of a controversy.
Well, now the Texas Bowl did burn out retina in your eye from ugly performance of all time.
It was, but he wasn't the only one.
Sure was.
That was pretty team wide. And look, that's modern college football now. If you have high expectations, when the expectations go away and you go to some meaningless bowl game, you don't care, and it shows.
What time's the game in?
Yeah, just make it go away, And so I never even thought about that from Jackson's standpoint. I just kind of tossed it up to the whole team sucked. Lane was bad that night, if we're being honest. I mean, it was.
He pretty much said that today.
Did he? Yeah. I
8-1 driving to beat Bama.
Yeah.
And then
it fell apart. They lost to Alabama. They ran into Arkansas.
Oh my.
Arkansas had a great half that night in Fayetteville. Ole Miss was kind of checked out. They got absolutely curb stomped, and then, had just an abysmal game 5 days later against Mississippi State with all the Auburn stuff rolling around. And anyway, the point is I think Lane kind of gave up on Jackson a little bit, and I think there was this expectation that Jackson would take his toys and leave, and he didn't. He said, no, this is my team, and he won that locker room that spring and proceeded to have really a fantastic 2023. Played hurt a lot, showed a lot of grit, showed a lot of determination, a lot of character. His teammates respect him. He's positioned himself to have a really special season.
Neil, I before we went to the break, I talked about you as a reporter, and I admire it. You're fearless, and it's easy to be fearless if you're at the New York Post covering the Yankees, because you're not going to have a lot of contact with fandom. Living in Lafayette County, you have a lot of contact with fandom. You got to go to school. You got to go. You've been to Little League. You're past that now. You got to go to high school events. You got to go out and eat. You call it like you see it. And with this run up to this year, there's nobody in the Ole Miss world that will settle for anything that's not double digits. The baseline's 10. Is that realistic?
Yeah, I mean that this team could win 10 games. Sure. Now,
what if they just won 8?
It's failure.
That's the word. It's failure, not disappointment.
No,
this morning I was visiting with Greg Gaston on our morning show, and I was looking for the right word. Is it failure if you go 10-2 and don't go to the playoffs? And I don't mean to be nitpicky.
I mean, to some degree.
Playoffs or bust?
I mean, look, here's the thing, right? So, like I said, I've been doing this job for a pretty long time. If in any of the previous 16 years, if I'd taken 100 Ole Miss fans, not the insane ones, but just realistic fans, and I'd said, all right, here's what I'm going to offer you. Here's what I'm going to tell you. They're going 9-3, 5-3 in the league, and they're going to go to the Citrus Bowl. At least 90% of those fans would have taken that happily. So if I take that same 100 fans now.
Neil, I've been happy to go to Birmingham Bowl.
But if I'm offering 9-3,
okay.
So if I take that same 100 fans and I go, okay, here's what I'm going to offer you. 9-3, 5-3 in the SEC, and the Citrus Bowl. I don't know that 10 would take it. They would be devastated, disappointed, upset, canceling their bowl trip. Yeah, that's where they are. Now, look, you can say that's crazy, and you can say that's nuts or whatever. I think it's a credit to Lane. He's raised the expectation. But look, it makes it high stakes.
He told us don't be satisfied, and he didn't want to see any coffee table books over winning the Outback Bowl.
Yeah. I remember that, and I kind of throw this year out because the COVID thing was so stupid. By the way, did all the players die?
It was just so stupid.
Did they? Because Dennis Dodd wrote about how all the players were going to die. Did they die?
They missed so bad. I saw Matt Hayes earlier today. We're completely digressing, Brian.
Anyway.
I saw Matt Hayes earlier today, and I tell him every time I see him. I tell Matt Berry every time I see him. I tell you a lot of times. I see you more than I do them, so I don't tell you every time. And Bryant did. I did. I love the people in July and August of 2020. And it felt like a lot of times, Neil, we were alone, that we were fighting against crazy pills, against crazy talk for 20-year-olds playing largely an outdoor sport, and we were talking like it was the bubonic plague. It was crazy. There were people trying to torpedo this sport that now make big money from it.
It's one of the reasons that I always correct people, because Ole Miss people sometimes get upset at Greg Sankey. They're like, he didn't fight the NCAA thing hard enough. And I'm like, you guys, man, number one, you're wrong on that. That's incorrect. And then, but number two,
my only quibble, he started fighting a little late for me. But
maybe
he fought.
Maybe a little. I blame Freeze. I really do. I blame Freeze. A different approach from Freeze would have changed that. But the point is, I'm like, you should still forgive it, because Greg Sankey single-handedly saved the 2020 season. Period. On the weekend that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 said, screw it.
Cut him out off the knees.
Had Greg Sankey said, you know what?
It's bigger than me.
It's
Sorry,
bigger than
boys,
me.
can't do it.
This thing, there would have been no season.
We're out jobs.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a different world. Anyway, what I was going to say was, that season they played Alabama to a close game. It was like
53-48.
Yeah, whatever it was. Alabama was
in a monsoon.
Alabama was really, really good, and Ole Miss ultimately couldn't keep up, and finally, Alabama ended up winning by a couple scores, and the 1/4 of the capacity that was allowed in the stadium gave him a standing ovation coming off the field. And I think Lane was like, "Why? What? We lost, And so you can't have that mentality and then go into this, and if it doesn't happen, go, well, we get no.
That's
I mean,
right.
And here's what's interesting is I think if you look around the league, it's Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Alabama. I think Georgia's number one, and then after that, I think there's a little mix. It's Texas, and it's Ole Miss, and it's Missouri. I think it's Alabama. It might be LSU. I think Tennessee thinks they have a say in it. I think Oklahoma thinks they might have a say in it, and at some point, I think Texas A&M might think they have a say in it. They're a very talented roster. Well, all of those teams aren't making the playoff, Brett. No. I mean, so there's going to be some failure, and so I look back on last season, and the one thing that it's not cold water, it's just caution. There were some close games last year. There were some, to their credit, they won them. They found ways to win them. But they were in trouble in New Orleans. They were in trouble in the fourth quarter against LSU. They flirted with trouble in the fourth quarter against Arkansas. They didn't flirt with it much, but they teased the idea of trouble at Auburn. They won all those games. Again,
A&M.
Yeah, A&M, I mean, that was a field goal. If he makes the field goal, that's overtime. So they won all those games, and that is a testament to them. It's grit, character, all that stuff. But I'm also kind of maybe this is the baseball fan in me that
it evens out.
Yeah, sometimes when your team wins a whole bunch of one-run games, you go, boy, we're due. And that's the one thing, so they got to be a better team this year than they were a year ago. Because if you are the same team, some of those games might not go your way this time. And it won't take much to disappoint, because, look, they have 5 games on their schedule that nobody talks about. Because I think a lot of Ole Miss people have just chalked them up as W's, and I'm like, boy. Kentucky at home, at South Carolina. I'm just doing these in order. At Arkansas, at Florida, Mississippi State at home. They have to go 5-0 in those games. I'm giving them the 4 non-leagues because they're going to win they're going to beat Wake Forest. They're going to win those games. There's 4 wins. If they win those 5 games we just said, you might only have to win 1 of the other 3. But if you have a stumble, at Columbia, in Fayetteville, home against Kentucky, whatever, if you have a stumble, you're going to have to beat 2 of those 3 games. Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma. Ole Miss hadn't won in Baton Rouge since 2008. Now, does that necessarily mean anything with this game? No. But it's worth noting.
But some good teams have gone down there and lost.
And look, man, Georgia's loaded. That's going to be a tough game. And then, Oklahoma's got a really good quarterback in Jackson Arnold. They have the makings of a really good defense. It won't be a freebie. If it is, then they're even better than I thought. But you asked, is it realistic? Yeah. Hell yeah, it's realistic. That team could absolutely win 10 games. I mean, Nick Saban said today he thought they could win 11. I'm not one to argue with Nick Saban.
No.
Not at all. We talk about all the guys coming back for Ole Miss this year, but kind of the biggest piece gone's got to be running back Quinshon Judkins. Who are the guys to know in the running back room this year? I know Ulysses Bentley comes back. Lane Kiffin went out and added some more running backs in the offseason. Who are some names that will get the touches this year for Ole Miss?
Henry Parrish is back. Mm-hmm. He has a solid career at Ole Miss and then Miami. What's the kid? Krosky Merritt. Mm-hmm. He's there, and he's had a good career. I mean, I don't know how ready he is to be an impactful SEC back. You mentioned Ulysses Bentley IV. The big thing with him is staying healthy. Mm-hmm. It's been something that he's struggled to do. Like, look, here's the reality on Quinshon. Losing Quinshon Judkins, yes, you lose a headache. You lose a big pain in the ass. Him, his family, especially his mom, all that stuff. You get rid of all that stuff. But you do lose a absolute ton of production.
Mm-hmm. That never fumbled.
Over the last 2 years, you can talk about Rocket Sanders in 2022 at Arkansas. You can talk about the kid at Missouri whose name escapes me from last year who had a great season. But over the last 2 years, the most consistent running back in the SEC has been Quinshon Judkins, and he's at Ohio State. I mean, they don't take tons of guys out of the portal, and they took him, headache and all, because he can play. And so you've got to replace him. And it doesn't have to be with running backs who all – maybe Logan Diggs in the second half of the season comes back healthy. But none of those guys are Quinshon. But now, collectively, can they give you that production? Maybe. Maybe you can get more out of your passing game. Your defense should be better, which will take some of the pressure off. Maybe Dart has some effectiveness running the football here and there. But it is an absolute question mark. I wrote about this, I guess, today or yesterday, starting media days, when you talk about questions facing this team. That's number one. How do you replace his production? And if you can replace his production and eliminate the culture stuff, then it's a win-win. But, look, it's interesting because they added a couple of guys from different programs that by the time they walked out the door and their places, those programs weren't exactly crying. They were like, I've had enough, go. And so that's college football today. That's not that's not just Ole Miss. That's everywhere. Another person's trash can become your treasure, or vice versa.
Neil McCready with us, and Neil, you mentioned year 17 for you. It's year 17 for me with Ole Miss Broadcasting. What are you more surprised about? You're entering year 17 on the Ole Miss beat, or Lane Kiffin's entering year 5 as head coach at Ole Miss?
Probably both.
Both have been a little taxing, haven't they?
Yeah. I think Lane would tell you he's shocked. I think Lane probably thought 2 years and he'd be out the door, and other opportunities would come, and one did, and I think he did the right thing not taking it, and he's kind of made Oxford home. That doesn't mean that he won't leave. It doesn't mean that he wouldn't take another opportunity at the college game. It doesn't mean that he maybe doesn't have an NFL itch. I don't know what the sentimentality would be if a year from now the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came calling, for example. I would suspect that would pull at his heartstrings.
Vikings.
Vikings. It doesn't mean that, look, there's the Florida rumor is going to come up. If the Gators struggle and Ole Miss has a big season, that's going to be a topic of conversation. I can't sit here today and tell you, oh, no, he won't go to Florida. I don't know. Maybe he goes, maybe he doesn't. But I think the fact that he stayed 5 seasons and done what he's done at Ole Miss and mastered the transfer portal the way that he has, and I think matured and developed an appreciation for the place and maybe even an affection for the place is noteworthy.
It's still one of the hardest jobs in the league, isn't it? Even with Collective.
I don't know. That's what's interesting is like the lack of transparency with NIL, pay for play, salary, whatever you want to call it. Like, I always have people ask me, where does Ole Miss stand in the pecking order? I'm like, I don't know. They might be 3rd. They might be 15th. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know how much money they truly have. You have the talk this morning about the House settlement that no one can still answer the one question I have, which is, so you're creating a cap on something that future players haven't agreed to and aren't obligated. What's stopping them from suing for more money?
And the NCAA never wins in court.
No, the NCAA doesn't win in court. And in fairness to the NCAA, I don't blame them for tossing up their hands here. I'm never one to defend them, but on this one, I'll defend them. Like, what other thing are you going to do?
Why do you think Sankey wants Congress so involved? What's the blueprint that they have that? Yeah, I want college football to look like that.
Congress can't fix anything.
They can't turn the lights on.
I don't know. Sometimes
they can feather their nest.
It's one of the things that, like, I'm a big Sankey fan. I think he's an incredibly smart person, and yet when you hear him talk about congressional assistance, he gets kind of nebulous. He gets kind of vague. And I almost think that's his way, without saying it, of his way of saying, I don't know. I don't know where this is going, right? All these athletic departments, these athletic departments were never designed to do this thing that they're suddenly asked to do.
It's unsustainable.
I think so. But, look, I say this, and sometimes it pisses people off. I don't have an emotional attachment to an alma mater. I went to 3 schools. I don't have an emotional attachment to any of them. So I can't relate to that. Maybe it is such a strong thing, this love for alma mater, that the fans will just keep ponying up no matter how bad it hurts, because on Saturday it feels so good.
Cut out children's inheritance for it.
But boy, you start asking people for $1,000 a month, or $1,500 a month, or $2,000 a month. At some point,
they used to buy a heck of a house.
At some point, like in my family, my wife would look at me and say, "You have lost your mind," and so I don't know. I don't know the answer to all that.
Last thing for Neil McCready, I know one thing you are passionate about, and yes, Bryant, we are going to get an NBA question in.
Oh, wow.
Neil is the biggest Oklahoma City Thunder in this area. We have never had a crossword. The closest thing we did is some of those Thunder Grizzlies playoff years, and I was running down Steve Adams, and he told me, he said, Brett, come on, man, if he were playing for the Grizzlies, you would love him. I go, no way, never. You were right. I fell in love with him. So for this vintage Oklahoma City, this version of Oklahoma City, how does it get past what KD and and Harden and Westbrook couldn't get past him. That's winning it all.
I think they've now assembled a team that's got a much better chance. I mean, I love their offseason. Forget the fandom for a minute. I'm not a Braves fan, but I have tremendous admiration for Alex Anthopoulos and the type of organization that he's put together in Atlanta, and that's exactly what Sam Presti's done in Oklahoma City. The truth is Sam Presti learned his mistakes from what happened with Harden and with Durant and with Russell. He learned those things, and he's put this team together now that, look, and you guys know this in Memphis, I mean, there's no guarantee that guys stay healthy, that stuff doesn't happen.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, right. But if you just assume that the entire league has 100% health, the Thunder won 57 games this last season, and I think they just improved by 5 games. They went out and made a deal that I thought was great for both teams. They traded Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. So you add another elite wing defender, and this one can shoot 41% from 3, which is something that Josh Giddey's never going to do.
And you get the Giddey headlines out of the way.
You get some of that. I don't think that was a real big deal for them. I just think what happened was Giddey pressed, and they tried to force his role, and it didn't work. And they gave away a lot of first-quarter possessions to him. They don't do that now. And instead, Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams are going to get those shots. Those guys are going to grow. They're going to become better NBA players. And then you go out and get Hartenstein, who he doesn't have to be a great player. You need him to rebound. He's going to rebound. He's an elite passing big on a team that loves to pass. That's the difference. That Thunder team with Durant and Westbrook and Harden sometimes was a your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, and Durant was miserable. This is a team that I think they enjoy playing together. Now, look, there might come a point where the egos get involved, and Jalen Williams says, "I'm not happy being the third guy. I could be the best player on this team. Let me out." But I think they're a title contender this season.
That's our friend Neil McCready. He tells it like it is. Neil, let's do it a bunch this football season.
Absolutely.
And in NBA.
Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah.
Very good. Neil McCready
Thanks,
with
Neil.
us talking Ole Miss and our SEC Media Days coverage. One of our great sponsors is also the sponsor of our text and talk line, and all our guests appear on the Sissy's Log Cabin text, talk, and guest line. They're the official jeweler of the Memphis Grizzlies and the hometown team, the Memphis Tigers. That great location at 4542 Poplar over at Poplar and Perkins and Laurelwood. Bill Jones and his great team here to stay. Some blow in and blow out overnight, not Sissy's Log Cabin. Go by and you look at that investment, and you immediately know these people are here to stay, and they are serious about this. Supporter of Tigers Athletics, and they will be with us again this football season on Mondays when we look back at the weekend in the SEC every Monday at 4:30. The Mid-South's largest selection of one-of-a-kind jewelry, engagement rings, wedding bands, necklaces, and earrings. 9,000 square foot in Laurelwood with expanded lines for Rolex, Cartier, diamonds, and more. Since 1970, with locations across the Mid-South, Sissy's offers a selection of diamonds, estate jewelry, and fine gifts. Official jeweler for the Memphis Grizzlies and FedEx Forum with the floor seat lounge. Unsurpassed value, exceptional service, expansive selection, and an extraordinary shopping experience. Because life's too short for ordinary jewelry.
Well, we need to go ahead and get to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what's trending, and we got to start talking about the Major League Baseball All-Star Game tomorrow night. And we'll compare this lineup for both the AL and the NL with the last time the All-Star Game took place in Dallas back in 1995. We'll do that next on Sports Time.
Add a little fun to your lunch break. Join Johnny Radio for Sports 56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
To understand what makes Genesis Diamond so different than other jewelry stores, you have to go back over 40 years to the diamond cutting capital of Tel Aviv, Israel. That's where Genesis owner Boaz Ramon grew up, in the center of the diamond universe. His connections with the best diamond cutters allowed him special access, giving rise to a thriving wholesale business here in the United States. Then, after a few years, this wholesaler changed the game and started selling these precious diamonds direct to the public at the same prices he had sold to the jewelry stores. the no middleman concept became an instant success. Today, Genesis Diamonds provides that extraordinary value to people right here in Middle Tennessee, leading the industry with the highest quality diamonds that still come straight from the best cutters, offered at the guaranteed best price of any jewelry store in America. Genesis Diamonds, a truly revolutionary concept with a unique history rooted in quality, committed to excellence, and always focused on value. Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes and Poplar and Perkins Extended.
Summertime's finally here, and that means it's time to party. Lucky for you, Family Leisure is having a summertime to party sale. Now, what's all included in this party sale? Practically everything. 24-foot above ground pools for as little as $19.99. All ladders, filter systems, and even robotic cleaners are 20% off. Come in and look at all of the in-stock patio furniture Family Leisure has. Plus, it's up to 50% off. Play gyms for the kids, that's $1,000 off. Patio umbrellas, take 20% off. You can get a 4-person hot tub for just under $3,000. We know you're really going to just use it for yourself. Family Leisure has discounted pricing on all in-stock pool toys and floats while the supplies last, so you better get in quick. Plus, Family Leisure has special financing available. Just ask an associate for all the details. Summertime means party time, and Family Leisure is ready for any party. Family Leisure, Whitten Road at I-40, where family and fun all come together.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Go ahead, feel your engine. Admire that perfectly installed exhaust. Your vehicle's moving along this freeway like it was made from fresh installs and a whole lot of love. With eBay Motors, you get over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
You or someone you know or care about has dealt with a difficult divorce. When facing divorce, you need the attorneys at Rice Law. Nick and Larry Rice lead the firm with 3 generations and 7 decades of experience. Located in Memphis, serving the entire state of Tennessee and North Mississippi. Rice Law is who you need to call. Simple or difficult divorce, they know how to handle it. Call Rice Law at 901-526-6701, or for more information, visit them at aboutdivorce.com. That's aboutdivorce.com.
Keep it twisted all year long with Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Twisted Tea is real iced tea that packs a punch with 5% alcohol. Tastes great at the beach, the mountains, or even in the backyard. Look for the bright yellow Twisted Tea flavors. Responsibly.
Ole Miss Rebel Yell is back. The Rebel Yell Hotline Radio Show is back on WHBQ Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Every Monday night at 6, hear the latest news on your Ole Miss Rebels with Yancey Porter with 24/7 Sports, former Ole Miss defensive tackle Mike Fitzsimmons, Gordon Ford covering SEC Sports Call, and former Ole Miss baseball announcer Gary Darby. From kickoff to free throw to extra innings, your Ole Miss Sports on the Rebel Yell Hotline Show right here Monday night at 6 on Sports 56, 560 AM and 98.5 FM. Your Mid-South Sports Station.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. Wrapping up this earlier crash out here on 240 westbound, just past Mill Branch. Of course, the heaviest flow of traffic is heading the other direction on 240 east from Mill Branch all the way out to 385. Still moving right now on 40 eastbound from Sycamore View Road all the way past Germantown Parkway, continuing out into Fayette County. Hey, Havenly Showers is your curbless shower specialist. Transform your bathroom with a tub to curbless showers conversion. Just check out havenlyshowers.com. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you in our Family Leisure studios as we've got about 30 minutes left in today's show. Got to talk about what's trending, and we got to talk about something else happening in Dallas this week. I guess Arlington, Texas, if you want to be super specific. But we've got
games by today.
You say that again?
They didn't bring Paul Skeens back.
Well, no, they didn't. We did get the shout out from Greg Sankey about him, but no Paul Skeens in attendance, which I think is a shame. But he'll start tomorrow night for the National League.
He will.
In Arlington, and should be a lot of fun tomorrow night.
He'll go out there in the bottom of the first.
Yep.
Well, I say that now because how we're doing all-star games anymore, you're not – I think a few years ago in San Diego, the National League was the visitor.
I think you're right.
Is that right?
I think you're right, but I do think it'll be the bottom of the first for him. I think I saw that somewhere the other day.
All right, we're going to compare 1995, the last time the Dallas Metroplex hosted the All-Star Game, and that was at the second stadium. It was outdoors, and everybody said it was great, except no air move. You still burn up like you did at the old American Legion Stadium that they moved from our nation's capital down here in the early 70s to play in. They don't have to worry about that tomorrow night at Globe Life. It'll be perfect. We'll compare it back to 1995, the last time they hosted. Now, some of these outfielders, that's not exactly where they played, more American League for when I go back to 95. And I'm not sure, like tomorrow night, who exactly is playing center field. Or where's Yelich? So we got to compare a little bit on the fly to this. So here's 1995 for the senior circuit. This stands up all time. Left field, Barry Lamar Bonds, Hall of Famer. Center field, Lenny Dykstra. Right field, Tony Gwynn, late great Tony Gwynn, Hall of Famer. Third baseman, Vinny Castilla. Shortstop, Hall of Famer, Barry Larkin. Second base, Hall of Famer, Craig Biggio. First base, Hall of Famer, Fred McGriff. Catching, Hall of Famer, Mike Piazza. 6 of the 8 position players are in Cooperstown. And nobody's ever making a case for Lenny Dykstra. Maybe Knucklehead, Hall of Fame for Lenny Dykstra and Vinny Castilla. That is compared to this year, outfield of Yelich, Profar, Tatis. That's a great outfield.
That's a good outfield.
And it's early in a lot of them's career.
Sure.
None of them are on a trajectory for Cooperstown.
No, I mean, maybe Tatis, but I mean, it's obviously a lot kind of going on with him and missed a season. But yeah, no, outside of that, I mean, I would definitely take 95 over for sure.
So, advantage 95.
Sure.
Third base, Alex Bone, great player. Don't know what the future holds, but again, right now, and it's early, it is very early. I don't know that he's going to the Hall of Fame, but I think he's probably going to be better than Vinny Castilla.
Yeah, I think so. I love Alec Boehm. I think he's a great player and has really kind of hit the scene the last couple of years up in Philadelphia with the Phillies, and most notably.
Did I go full bone instead of Boehm? I think I did.
You might have. I don't know.
Brett, I went leg bone.
Brett, it's been a long day for you in Dallas, so I do not blame you if you slip up on the name.
It's too early in the week for me to claim I'm not responsible for anything I do or say.
Maybe.
It's way too early.
Okay, that's your one pass, and now after this, until we get to like late Wednesday or Thursday, no more passes for you. Because you're
Shortstop
right.
Trey Turner compared to Barry Larkin. I know it's really difficult to do. Trey Turner, I would say, on an arc of Cooperstown, on a trajectory.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I love Trey Turner. I think he's a fantastic player. I think you're absolutely right.
Don't know that I'd take him over Barry Larkin, but I know he's really good. First base, Bryce Harper. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to the Hall of Fame, and I think I'd take him, even playing first base, over Fred McGriff.
Yeah, no, I would take Bryce Harper playing a lot of positions if he had to. I think Bryce Harper is an unbelievable player, but yeah, no, I would definitely take him.
William Contreras says the National League catcher, the brother of Wilson, the Milwaukee Brewer, against Piazza right now. It's really not a fair fight. American League back then. Left fielder Albert Joey Bell, speaking of LSU. Wow. Center fielder Kenny Lofton, speaking of college basketball. Right fielder playing out of position but voted in Kirby Puckett. Kirby Puckett, the first Hall of Famer from 95 in the AL starting lineup. Third base, Wade Boggs, Hall of Fame. Shortstop, Cal Ripken, Hall of Fame. Second base, Carlos Baerga, not in the Hall of Fame. And first base, the big hurt, Auburn Tiger, SEC, just meets for Frank Thomas. And at catcher, Ivan Rodriguez, Hall of Famer. 5 of 8 position players from 95 already ensconced in Cooperstown.
That's really strong, Brett. I mean, you're right. When you told me earlier today that we were going to take a look at these
go look at
these teams, and you said, man, you got to look at these names on these teams, and you're absolutely right. It's unbelievable looking at some of the guys that started in 95.
tomorrow night's American League starters in the outfield, I'm not exactly sure position-wise, but Aaron Judge on his way. Juan Soto on his way. Stephen Kwan, good player, I don't think a Hall of Fame trajectory right now. Jose Ramirez at third, shortstop Gunnar Henderson. We got a lot of baseball card to fill out.
Sure.
Second baseman, hometown player for the Rangers, Marcus Semien. In first base, Vladimir Guerrero. Catcher, Adley Rushman. I think the American League's got more prospects for future speeches and Hall of Fame ceremony than this year's National Leaguers.
Yeah, when you look at all the young guys on this on that are starting for the AL, I mean, you mentioned it, Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rushman are both really, really young guys, and then you've got a guy like Stephen Kwan, who's really starting to hit his stride, and an underrated guy in Stephen Kwan who's doing unbelievable things at the plate, hitting the ball, getting on base. So yeah, I really like this AL team, and you're right, a lot of really fun young stars that are going to start tomorrow night.
In Cleveland, do they have game ops ready when he does something well to hit the Quan like we used to for Laquan Treadwell?
You know what? I'm not sure. I wouldn't put it past them, though. I think they should.
Come on, game ops. Pick your game up.
That's right.
That's tomorrow night, and we'll talk a little more about it tomorrow, but we wanted to take a look at those lineups tonight. Tonight, Home Run Derby. That'll be fun, and we will be watching our SEC Media Days coverage. Of course, it includes Jason's Deli. When I talked to the Jason's Deli people about SEC Media Days, I said, you don't even have to ask. We're with you. They always are with us, and I appreciate it so much with all the great locations. I guarantee you one close by you wherever you are in our area. On Ridgeway Road over by MUS, Poplar and Highland by the University of Memphis, down in Olive Branch, out in Cordova, with those great locations, over 200 Memphis associates working so hard for you, bringing more to the table. It's a family thing at Jason's Deli. Whether you're dining in, you're getting it to go, it's wholesome food forever. It's a family thing. We're closing in on the dinner hour. And don't forget about Jason's Deli at dinner time. And I don't know why I'm telling y'all that. I need to remind myself of that. Sometimes I leave the studio and I ease by at night if I haven't been over there at the daytime. Some accuse me of living there, and I don't mind it. I love being over there. And when you go in all the locations, you walk in, you see that great salad bar. Over 30 items to choose from for you to prepare that salad however you would like. If you want to order off the menu, the Nutty Mixed Up Salad, the Big Chef Salad, and my favorite, the taco salad, catering anytime, anywhere, back-to-school events, band events, team building events, cheer events, anything back to school. Let that big catering job start with Jason's Deli. Healthy, first franchise in the nation to be trans fat free. And on these hot summer days in every location, treat yourself to the complimentary free ice cream. Check them out online as well at jasonsdeli.com.
Brett, talking about the All-Star game, I don't know over the weekend, I know very busy weekend for you trying to get to Dallas, if you caught any of the All-Star Futures game on Saturday. I tried to peek in every once in a while, especially early in it, but the coaching staffs that they put together for the Futures game was unbelievable. It was a bunch of former Ranger legends. And here were some that I just saw while I was watching, or, that they mentioned. Adrian Beltre, Prince Fielder, Francisco Cordero, Derek Holland, Mitch Moreland, Nelson Cruz, Elvis Andrus.
My man.
That's right, your guy. Michael Young, Ian Kinsler, and there was maybe one other guy that I know, but plenty of guys, I'm sure plenty that I didn't mention, but especially those guys were, when I was young, watching a lot of Rangers baseball, those were my guys. It was so much fun seeing those guys in the dugout coaching these young prospects for a day. It was a lot of fun.
I'm looking down Radio Row, and I see Texags right by us, but I think they're probably more Astros fans than Rangers, so I don't want to say this too loud, make anybody mad, because it hits a sore subject. My man Nelson Cruz, thank you forever for playing in and letting David Freese triple get over your head. He was playing in because he wanted to be the first to the dog pile in celebration, and it kicked off the best comeback in Cardinal history.
Well, it did, and that was a time where I was rooting for a different team, Brett.
I know.
So it's a sore subject for me, but it's okay. I still love him.
What are you thinking, man? You can celebrate the rest of your life.
That's right.
Don't let anything get over your head.
Yeah.
That's the late inning rule from Little League.
Oh, yeah.
no triples.
No.
And let David Freese get one over his head.
That's right. Play back if you have to. Do not let anything over your head. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that was fun. It's going to be a lot of fun tonight and tomorrow in Dallas, though, and that beautiful ballpark they have.
It is beautiful, and I promised yesterday in the drive down, and we'll have Rob Fisher on with us later in the week with Richard Cross when we wrap up the week with our SEC roundtable on Thursday at 5. We both were in agreement. We weren't patting them on the head, and we weren't being – well, we were kind of being obnoxious Cardinal fans. But last year for the Rangers to get theirs, because we saw their absolute hearts torn out in 2011, they may have probably been the best team that year, but they didn't get it done. But they got it done last year with Bruce Bochy. And isn't the symmetry of tomorrow night great for him, a guy that's now won it 4 times, 3 with the Giants, 1 with the Rangers, got to a World Series with the Padres, kind of got pushed out in San Francisco, win the World Series, and he's the manager for the team in your home ballpark. That's good for Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a lot of fun, and Bruce Bochy, he gets another chip last year, so that was really fun to see. But I'm excited. Tonight with the Home Run Derby will be fun to watch, and then obviously tomorrow night, a lot of eyes will be on the All-Star Game on Fox. But let's go ahead and get to our final break, and when we come back, we'll wrap up today's show with Taco Bell Crunch Time.
Join the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin, for Wolo and Friends. Weekday mornings from 10 to 11 here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Guns, and more guns. Over 700 firearms in stock. Home defense guns, old guns, new guns, used guns, big guns, little guns. Every gun you can think of, Classic Arms has them. All brands like Glock, SIG, Colt, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Browning, Beretta, Benelli, Remington, Winchester, and more. Guaranteed lowest prices in town. Only gun importer in the Mid-South. Free gun inspections and appraisals and free bore sighting for the upcoming deer season. Shop online at ClassicArmsOfMemphis.com or visit Classic Arms at 1740 Germantown Parkway behind Quicky's Barbecue in Cordova.
Sizes, residential or commercial. After our inspection, we'll share our findings and give you our professional opinion. Some people say you get what you pay for. However, our opinion is free. Trust the name you can depend on, like the tens of thousands of families Brian and I have served over the past 20 years here in the Mid-South. Brian Elmer Roofing. We'll measure your roof from outer space and share our team's experience for your property and claim. Repaired roofs, replacement roofs, big roofs, tiny roofs, insurance roofs, flat roofs, TPO roofs, asphalt roofs, tile roofs, slate roofs, metal roofs. If your roof needs some love, call me. 901-867-0300.
Nestled in the heart of East Memphis, located corner of Park and Cherry, is a beautiful residential neighborhood. I'm here at Town Village Audubon Park interviewing a new resident, Carolyn. Share with us why you chose Town Village.
Well, if your parents or special friends need to make that big move, let me share with you my experience. It was tough for me to leave home, but then I discovered Town Village. I would like to highly recommend Town Village to you and your loved ones. After looking at all the amenities and meeting all the people and staff, I was hooked. From restaurant, bistro, 3 meals per day, housekeeping, transportation, security, health care, physical therapy, exercise room, and even a heated pool and spa. Come see us and make your new home in Town Village.
Visit us and call Daniel at Town Village Audubon Park at 901-374-7342. There's no place like home, Town Village.
Keep it twisted all year long with Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Twisted Tea is the iced tea that packs a lunch with 5% alcohol. Tastes great at the beach, mountains, or even in the backyard. Look for the bright yellow Twisted Tea flavors. Responsibly.
Admit it. When you start thinking about tastes of Memphis, you think treats, sweets. You think Dinstall's. For 122 years now. What is that, 5 generations? When people wanted something to bring to a party that will just make everybody happy, they bring out Dinstall's. 122 years. of Cashew Crunch, of Heavenly Hash, of Turtlettes, of their award-winning fudge. That's worldwide. It's known that well. Then there's the milk chocolate. It all starts there. There's the double dip peanuts. And then every fall, those famous chocolate-covered strawberries with that fondant. And they won't tell you what's in the fondant, but it makes it oh so special. And easy to get to. 5 locations. There's where they make the candies in Pleasant View. There's Germantown. There's Collierville. There's even one downtown and in my neck of the woods in Laurelwood. You know what? 122 years made in Memphis and enjoyed by the whole world. Dinstall's.
Now back to Sportstime on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Here once again are Brett Norsworthy and Brian Davis.
This is pretty cool, and we're just getting started, so.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
This is for all the biggest crunch time.
You are looking live.
In your life have you seen anything like that?
Goodbye! Hello, Haskell.
It's obviously crunch time.
Hammer, nail, coffin. This baby is over.
The double steak grilled cheese burrito, so good. Double the steak with nacho cheese sauce, seasoned rice, red strips, sour cream, and the 3-cheese blend wrapped inside a warm flour tortilla, with even more 3-cheese blend grilled on the top. The double steak grilled cheese burrito, it hits the spot now at Taco Bell. And at Taco Bell, when they say they are feeding people's lives with unexpected good, they mean it. Bowl food you can't get anywhere else.
Well, Brett, what I learned today is we had something really cool happen in Scotland over the weekend. Robert McIntyre became the first Scot in 25 years to win the Scottish Open. It was part of an incredible comeback. He was down 2 shots with 3 holes to go, able to make it up and win the Scottish Open. A really cool scene, like I said, the first Scot to do it in 25 years. So obviously a lot of excitement for Robert McIntyre. Old Bob McIntyre this week. We'll see if maybe he can carry that over into this upcoming week.
He was close last year to winning that and didn't close it out yesterday. I will get golf updates out to you. Don't think I've forgotten about that. I remember John almost took him and took Thomas Dietrich instead.
And I thought he did. I was talking to Connor, I think, Saturday, and I was like, yeah, I don't remember, but I think John might have taken close. Robert McIntyre.
No, I had Thomas Dietrich instead. What I learned today, I didn't need the lesson, but the weekend once again proved to me and proved to a lot of people how much we need and want sports. I love when Greg Sankey mentioned it today, and it's why Bryant and I have always and will always, stick to sports.
Yep.
It's our escape. It's our release. It's our diversion. It's our way to keep our sanity just talking about the games. This show has never been and will never be about politics.
No, you're absolutely right. I cannot agree more with that statement. But what I could have done without, it was the weekend for Jordan Addison. We've learned he was arrested Friday night for a suspicion of DUI in L.A. Police responded to a call regarding a disabled vehicle blocking lanes on I-105 in L.A. The officer that responded found Addison asleep behind the wheel of a white Rolls-Royce blocking a lane on the highway. If you remember last year, Addison was arrested in July of last year, so literally a year ago, for driving 140 miles per hour on a Minnesota freeway in a Lamborghini where the speed limit was 55. So now back-to-back years for Addison to have situations involving a vehicle, and this comes just a week after one of Jordan Addison's teammate was unfortunately killed in a car crash involving a drunk driver on the other end. So really sad to see this happen for Jordan Addison, and hopefully he can learn from this, and we won't have something like this happen with him again.
College and pro alike. Let's get to camp and get to business. And Jordan Addison, this is this is textbook on how to wreck a career.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe your life. Could have been done without. Tough sledding just got tougher for Vanderbilt. But talking Vandy football today just made me think how almost impossible it is, and maybe made more impossible. I hate it for my Vandy friends and for Clark Lee, but it's just hard. It's hard to be Vandy right now playing football in the SEC.
No, you're absolutely right. And we talk about, we talked with multiple guests today, and it'll be a continuing theme throughout the week, I'm sure, of how good the quarterback play is in this conference and just how many good quarterbacks there are. And you look, 3 quarterbacks entered the transfer portal from last year's Vanderbilt team, and they've got a couple newcomers in there. To have to take over in the SEC your first year with the team, that's going to be really tough. So I'm with you. It's going to be rough for Vanderbilt this year, I'm afraid. Where are you beaming tonight?
SEC Media Days party tonight and the rehash of day 1. Tomorrow, Kirby and the Dogs, the Tennessee Volunteers, Boomer Sooner, and Missouri, kind of a Big 8 feel tomorrow to SEC Media Days. Brent Venable and Eli Drinkwitz both here representing OU and Mizzou. But tonight will be fun rehashing a very busy day 1 as we look to day 2.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. And it's going to be interesting. I know we've done this build-up all off-season, some of last season. I know it was talked about a lot today by Commissioner Greg Sankey. But to see the first of the 2, Oklahoma, take the stage tomorrow is going to be weird. But it's going to be really, really cool to see them and to be able to talk Oklahoma, because it's a weird year. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, Brett. You've got a team that won 10 games last year, but it feels like there isn't a ton of excitement for this group this year, or a ton of they did great things last year, even though they won 10 games, which seems really strange. Being me tonight, out to Vegas, Summer League action again for the Grizzlies. We don't know yet the status on Zach Edey, if he'll play or if he'll sit another game. I believe Taylor Jenkins over the weekend talking during the Grizzlies game said that, he's a guy that wants to play. They want to get him back out there. I think he even listed him as probable for the rest of Summer League. So we'll see if he gets back out there and what he can do if he goes tonight against the Mavs.
Tonight, we will watch it a lot. We'll watch the Home Run Derby. I think about 18 miles. I think somebody told me that's how far it is from here where we are to Globe Life. Traffic, it takes a lot longer than that. Also tonight, something I always love at every major, live from the Open Championship at Royal Troon, building up to early morning, late night, time machine golf for me on Wednesday into Thursday. And for all the weekend, got a little taste of it at the Scottish Open.
Yeah, we sure did. But that's day 1 of SEC Media Days in the books. I want to thank all of our sponsors again before we get out of here. First National Bank and Trust, Gould's, Jim's Place in Collierville, your North Mississippi John Deere dealer, Wade Incorporated, the Commissary in Germantown and Collierville, Sissy's Log Cabin, Memphis Sports and Tourism Council, Ronnie Grazzani's, Jimmy McElroy, and Associates, Landers Ford, and Jason's Deli. Thank y'all so much for being with us. Enjoy your night, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow afternoon.
Bricks Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Bricks Powder Coating special